Hi there, my name is Dan Scott and I'm an Adobe certified instructor for Photoshop. Now together in this course, me and you are going to learn everything we need to know about using Photoshop. This course is for beginners. You don't need any previous knowledge in Photoshop, photography or design. So this is a project-based course, which means we're not going to go through every single tool in every one of its little settings. What we're going to do is we're going to set practical, real-world examples and then learn the tools and features necessary to make it both beautiful and easy. You'll learn how to easily enhance images, correcting the light and the color. You'll know how to add, remove, and change colors in an image. We'll select, we'll mask, and we'll combine images. Then we'll work with text. We'll also add logos so that we can create beautiful flyers and posters, plus some banner ads. You'll learn the Photoshop secret sauce, where we can magic up more background or completely remove objects and people from images. Cool, huh? Before the end of the course, you'll have the skills to mask anything, including the dreaded hair. Using those amazing new masking skills, you'll be able to clear cut images and start playing with some interaction with things like the type in the background. Together we'll work through lots of popular visual styles and learn the tools and tricks necessary to make them easily. There's my favorite section where you'll learn how to distort, transform and manipulate images. We'll make our own graphics using simple techniques to create graphics like this from scratch. You wouldn't be complete as a Photoshop user without the solid retouching skills we'll learn here. And finally, any good Photoshop user should know how to put an island inside of a bottle. There are exercise files that you can download so you can work alongside me. There are also assignments that I set throughout the course so that you can practice your skills as we're going. So if you've never opened up Photoshop or you have and you really struggled with the basics, follow me and I will show you how to make beautiful images inside of Photoshop. The end. Good work, everybody. Sound guy, camera guy, good guys. There's no other people here. It's just me. Bye. Hi there, in this video we're going to just get everything set up for this course so it all runs nice and smoothly. The first thing you'll do is download the exercise files. There will be a link on the page here to go off and download those so you can play along. You don't have to, but obviously it'd be easy if you had the exercise files and work along with me. The next thing to do is just getting your workspace. Like, it depends on what I mean by workspace is just what Photoshop looks like. Sometimes it looks like this, sometimes it looks like this, sometimes it looks completely different. Let's everyone right now get it all looking the same by going to Window, go down to Workspace, and let's click on Essentials Default. It's kind of, yeah, that's the basic kind of layout for Photoshop. Now yours won't have this group of images because that's specific for me, but what you might do is it might still be looking different. You can go to Window, Workspace, and click on Reset Essentials. That just kind of like rejigs it to make sure it's kind of as it was out of the box. That is quite handy if later on you're dragging this and it somehow gets connected to this thing over here and this bit gets dragged out. So if you ever get lost like this, you're like, man, everything's everywhere. Just go back up to Window, go to Workspace, and go to Reset Essentials, and it goes all back to its happy home. The other thing you might do, this is more optional. I have to do it when I'm teaching because on a Mac, it's under Photoshop CC, Preferences, General. If you're on a PC, it's under Edit, and it's way down the bottom here somewhere. Okay, so go to Preferences, General, and you might click both of these, or it says Reset Preferences on Quit and Reset All Warning dialog boxes. That's just going to kind of like, if you've made any changes throughout the software, it's going to kind of reset it back to the defaults. You might not do that. I do it so that yours looks exactly like mine. If you are kind of a reasonable user of Photoshop, you might just leave that because you might have made some changes and you don't want to, I guess, wreck your changes. The one thing to note though, if you reset your preferences, it's on Quit. It means you got to go to, on a PC, go to File, Quit Photoshop, or on a Mac, it's under here, Photoshop, Quit. Just quit it and open it back up, and only then will those preferences be redone. Next thing to note is I'm using CC 2018. Okay, that's the version of Photoshop. If you're using an earlier version, okay, you might find some of the features won't work. Now, what features won't work? There'll be a few of them. Okay, if you are using, say, CS6 or CS5, which is quite old now, 90% of this course will still work. So should you do it? You should. There's going to be a few things that don't work, and that's just, I guess, you need to upgrade to the newer version, but there'll be lots of useful stuff in here still for you. But double check, you can go to help and go to updates, just make sure you've got the latest version. One other thing you might notice, the difference between yours and mine, is you might not see this 3D option here, and a couple of like little weird things under filter and render. We're not going to cover them in this kind of essentials course, so it's no big deal. But if you are finding later on after this course, you're like, man, why there was 3D in Dan's version and not in mine? It's probably just your version of Photoshop it's not your Photoshop, it's your laptop or your computer. It's probably using what's called a 32-bit operating system, and it just won't work with 3D. So Photoshop can kind of come in a couple of flavors, and it'll do its best on your operating system. So if you've got an old crappy operating system, really old poor laptop, fans are coming on, it's all very stressed, it might not do these things just because your computer just can't handle it. So you might have to upgrade the same version of Photoshop, but you might have to get a new upgraded laptop or computer. All right, the last thing to cover is the use of the images in this course. So you got the exercise files, you can totally use them to practice and follow along with me. But if you want to use them in your, say, portfolio or in some of your actual work, okay, your professional work, you need to go and license the images. Now, I've got all these images from Adobe stock. It's stock.adobe.com. I pay a monthly fee and I get 10 images. You can start your 30-day trial and get 10 images. Okay, but you got to go and find those images and pay for them to use them. Or just go and switch them out. So do the examples with me and then find some other free stock library images to use for your portfolio or your commercial work. Great places to get free stuff from is a couple here. So Pixels is really cool, okay? And yeah, just good quality, high quality, free to use images. There's that, there's freeimages.com. There is unsplash.com is really cool as well. Okay, really awesome images. Where's another place? deathofthestockphoto.com. Okay, same thing here. Okay, you're allowed to use them commercially. Another way to use it is Google Images, right? You can't just do a search. You can't just go, I need a picture of a shoe and just steal stuff from here. Okay, what you can do though is you can figure out which are allowed to be used. So you can go to tools and you can go to, I do a couple of things. I make sure I want to find large images, so good quality ones. I want to find usage rights, and I want to go this one here, labeled for reuse with modification. Okay, this I could use, but I wouldn't be able to mess with it in Photoshop. So I want this license, and it will cut it down to, the list gets quite small. Okay, but you can see large images that I'm allowed to use in my work. Okay, so that's a way of getting around image licensing, or if you've got the budget, jump to Adobe Stock. Another paid one is Shutterstock. Another paid one is iStock. They're all really good. Adobe Stock tends to fit in with Photoshop a little bit better. All right, this is a really long video. We're all ready to get started with Photoshop, and let's actually start making some stuff. All right, let's get into the next video. Hi there, and welcome to the first video. In this video, we're going to look at how layers work in Photoshop. It's quite fundamental. As a bonus, we'll learn the super quick auto fixing photo features in Photoshop. Okay, they're called auto tone, contrast, and color. And what it'll do is it'll help us really just understand layers properly. Okay, you can see my layers over here, and you can see my super awesome adjustments. All right, let's go and do that now in Photoshop. Okay, first thing to do is open the file we're going to be working with. We can do that under File and go to Open. And what you're looking for is the exercise files you've downloaded, okay, and then find a folder called O1 Layers. Open that up, and inside of there should be one called layers.jpg. Click on that and then click Open. All right, so remember this video is going to do a couple of things. It's going to show us how to use layers, which is quite fundamental to Photoshop, but it's also going to introduce one of the kind of most easy photo adjustments you can do in Photoshop. It's using the automatic features. So we're going to learn both of those. So first thing we need to do is we need to make sure we can see our layers panel. If you can't see it, go to Window and make sure there's a little tick next to layers even. I can't see it, there it is. Okay, and make sure he's open. You'll see background. And what I'd like to do is, instead of just like changing this version here, I'd like to create a duplicate of that layer so that I can make an adjustment and then kind of see the difference between the original and the updated version. And that's a really common thing to do in Photoshop. To do that, you right click the word where it says background and say duplicate layer. Okay, now this window appears, and what we'll do is we'll give this a name. Okay, we're going to call this auto tone, and let's click OK. Now what's happened here, can you see down here on my layers panel, nothing really visually has changed on our screen, but you can see down here I have two layers, one called background and one called auto tone. They're both looking the same. What I want to do is do this automatic adjustment, and you can kind of tell which one you've got selected. It kind of goes a lighter gray. So have that selected and go up to image, and we're going to use auto tone. Cool, huh? Okay, so it's one of the really quick, easy things you can do. Open up an image, and if like our original there, if the lights and the shadows and the midtones aren't all quite nice, okay, this automatic feature will go and adjust them. Okay, so that's auto tone. So what we really came here though is to learn about layers. And you can see at the top here, it's a little hard because it's kind of small, but you can see auto tone, you can kind of see the icon or the thumbnail here has changed to this newer version, but you can also see the background has that faded out version. And what we can do, imagine when you're looking at layers, you see the top one first. You imagine you're a bird flying above and you see this one first and it's blocking out the guy underneath. To turn this top one off and make it invisible, to see the background, see there's this little eye icon here, just click on him. Okay, and now that one's completely, it can't be seen, completely transparent, and you can see the background underneath. It's just a good way to turn this eye on and off to see whether you've made a good adjustment or a bad adjustment. Okay, you can go back to that original. You haven't wrecked the original either. You can always go back to it if you like. Next thing I want to do is let's turn off the eyeball on auto tone. Let's click the background layer so it goes this lighter gray, and let's duplicate it again. So right click, go to duplicate layer, and let's call this one auto contrast. So we looked at automatic tones. Okay, that's one of the automatic features, and we're going to go through the other two that are quite useful. Okay, real quick and easy as well. So we've got this kind of faded out version. Let's go to image. You can see we've done tone. Let's do auto contrast. Now this effect is definitely better than the original, but probably wasn't as good as auto tone. You can see over here in my layers panel, I've got auto contrast. Let's turn the eyeball off on it so we can compare it to the original. You can kind of see this layer stack here. This one's invisible, so I can't see it. I can turn auto contrast off to see the background. Okay, but if I turn auto tone back on, I'm like, yeah, for me personally, it's hard to see, I guess, when you're watching these videos because color depends on your screen, but you probably notice auto tone's a nicer one. Let's look at the last option and compare which automatic feature we like, all the while getting used to layers. So I'm going to turn the top eyeballs off and have the background selected, right click it, duplicate layer, and this one is called auto color. Auto color even. Okay, let's click OK. Go up to image, let's go to auto color, and pretty good. Looks pretty close to auto tone. So if I turn auto tone on and off, depending on what resolution you're watching this video in, you might not see very much of a difference. Okay, there's a little slight difference. It's just kind of maybe tonal range. One's a bit more, auto tone's got a warmer feel to it, and auto color has just a tiny green tinge to it. So a couple of things we've learned is let's kind of finish off layers, and then we'll talk about these adjustments and where they're good for. So in terms of the layers, what I'd like you to do is practice turning on, let's say I wanted to just see auto contrast. Okay, so I turn this top one off. Let's see, one of the things I guess I like to ask my classes when they're live is like, hey guys, I'm turning auto color on and off. Why is nothing changing? Okay, and everybody goes, yeah, we know, Dan. And eventually somebody says, it's because this one's on top. Okay, and we're just getting used to this. We're getting started. So, okay, if you can play around with all of these guys underneath and nothing's going to happen because this guy's on top and he's blocking the view of the other things. Now, two other things before we move on from layers is that you can change the order of them. So let's say that you want auto color at the top. What you can do is grab auto color by clicking, holding, and dragging the text here. Drag, drag, drag. See, it turns into like a little fist, like he's grabbing it. And then you'll see a little blue line appear. There it is. So that'll drag it just above contrast. If I keep going, another little blue line up here. If you go crazy, it gets lost. So you just got to kind of drag it and just keep an eye out for those blue lines. So at the top there means auto color's on top. Let's say I want auto tone on top. Let's say auto contrast on top. You get in the swing of it. You can drag it down, you can drag it up, just looking for those blue lines. So the last thing I'd like to mention about layers before we move on is background. Background's special. So when you open up a JPEG or a PNG, okay, often it's called background, and one of the big things is that it's locked. The trouble with that is like, it won't do it, okay? Okay, it doesn't like it. So what we need to do is we need to give it a name. That's the best way to kind of play around with the lock here, okay, or remove the lock. You can double click the word background, okay, and up here, you can give it a name. I'm just gonna call mine original. The cool thing about that is that the lock has been removed. I've never in my life gone, man, I wish that lock was on there. It's always just a pain. So if you're finding like, it's a bit weird, it is a bit weird. I don't know, it's just one of the Photoshop things. Okay, so I've called it original. Now I can move it to the top and do what I like with it. We bring it up here because it's going to become more and more important as we go through the course. There's some things you just can't do the background because it's locked. You could lock it again by clicking this lock icon. We never want to. But yeah, that is it for layers. Now what I will do is, let's turn off the original, is these three here. I don't want you to leave this class thinking, auto tone's always better. Okay, it's not always. This is kind of doing, later on in the course, you'll look at levels. This is what this is trying to do. Auto color is dealing with the hue and saturation. They're just doing it automatically. And the thing is if this was a different image, you might find, because in this case, auto contrast didn't do a great job, right? You might find that it's actually absolutely perfect for the job that you're doing. So I find the auto features is really good when I don't want to do amazing photo retouching. I just want it to be better. Let's say I'm uploading photos to my Facebook or a business web gallery, and I just want them to be better. Okay, so I'm going to open them up in Photoshop, smash away at auto tone because I figured out that was the best one for my kind of photo shoot, and then just keep doing it and saving them so I don't have to go through and do any kind of hardcore adjustments that we're going to do a bit later. Okay, so just quick and easy, but don't think auto tone is better than auto contrast. It really depends on your images. All right, last thing we'll do is we're going to save this file. Okay, so we're going to go to File and hit Save, and something strange is going to happen. It's not going to save it. It was called layers.jpg, you can see in the top left here. But because we've added layers, this is a specific Photoshop feature. Okay, JPEGs can't have layers. So it needs to be saved as a different format. And Photoshop's clever and says you need to be PSD. Now, if you're on a Mac like me, yours might look like this. And that's fine, but see this little icon here? It's just better if it's opened up. Okay, I'm going to make mine a little bit smaller as well. If you're on a PC, it's already open. Okay, so on a Mac, just click that to open it up. And you don't need to change anything. We're going to call ours layers.psd, and all it means is it's going to be very similar to the last one, except it's got this little bit in here. The file size is going to be a bit bigger, but it's great because it's got all this layers that we can go and turn on and off later on. So let's save it as layers.psd and click Save. Now this pops up. We might as well cover this here. Maximize compatibility. This is always on. You never want, it just means that this is likely to open in older versions of format. So, older versions of Photoshop. So if you're sending this to somebody who has CS6 or CS5, it's more than likely going to open. The file size gets a tiny bit bigger, but it's not worth turning that off to save the file size because, yeah, it just means somebody might not be able to open it up. You can click Don't Show Again. I can't because I am a trainer and I need to show this to everybody that's new. It's a pain in the bum. Okay, but let's just click OK and ignore that. I'm not going to mention it again for the course. All right, let's go to File, Close, and move on to our next video. Hey there. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the course so far. There's plenty more to come. I just wanted to butt in here to remind you that this is a small part of my larger Photoshop Essentials course. So there's more after this if you like. I'll put a link in the description for that if you're interested. I also have a Photoshop Advanced course there as well. What you're seeing in front of you now are the things that we go on to make in those courses. If you did decide to subscribe to my courses, you also get access to my InDesign, Illustrator, After Effects, Premiere Pro, Dreamweaver, and Adobe XD courses. All right, that's the sales pitch over. Back to your regular scheduled programming. Welcome everyone. This video is just going to be an introduction to navigating around Photoshop. We're going to combine these three images, okay, all into this lovely little collage here. We're going to move them around. We're going to resize them. We're going to practice zooming in and out and navigating. No, not super exciting, but super fundamental. Let's get into it now in Photoshop. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a bunch of files. So let's go to File and go to Open. And what I'd like you to do is in your exercise files, there is a folder called 01 Layers. Double click that. Inside of there, we want navigation, and we want navigation 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the images we're going to combine. Now you can open them individually by selecting them, clicking open, but that can get a bit tedious. So what we're going to do is click this first one at the top here, okay, and then hold down Shift on my keyboard, okay, and click the last one, and it should highlight them all. Or open them up individually, whatever works. Let's click open. All right, so in Photoshop, when you've got more than one document open, they transfers them into these tabs along the top here. So click on the tabs, just get used to it. Okay, so those are all the images that I've got open, 4 of them. And what I'd like to do is combine them all into this first image here. So we're going to start with navigation 2. That's the one that I want to move into this navigation 1 document. Now there are lots of ways of kind of copying images into files and moving them around. But I'm going to show you the way that, I guess it's just kind of future bulletproof. It just works with later on when we get into slightly more complicated things like layer masks and adjustment layers. This technique is still going to work. And the technique is pretty simple. Okay, use the move tool, okay, which is the first tool in your toolbar here. And all you do is click, hold, drag your mouse, clicking, dragging, okay, drag, 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 hover above this tab for like a second, and then it switches. I've still got my mouse down, still holding, let go. Okay, it's a bit weird. I know, I promise. Okay, I totally understand. So let's give it another practice though. Let's go to navigation 3. Same thing. Okay, I'm gonna get my move tool, click, hold, drag. I'm holding my mouse down, holding my left mouse key down, holding, hovering above the tab, and then letting go. That is the technique. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it's going to prove future-proof later on. Let's go to the last one here. Click, hold, drag, 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 hold, let go. Okay, we've got a slight problem with this one's a different size. Now I've resized these first ones just to make life easy, and they fit in here perfectly. But more often than not, you're going to be kind of combining images, and they're going to be really different sizes. Sometimes they could be really big. Okay, if you've taken them on a, quite a high-end digital camera, that can be really, really big. So that's going to bring us into some more of the navigation things we need to learn throughout this course. Okay, I'm going to pile them all into here. Don't worry if you're like, oh man, these shortcuts, there's too many. We're going to kind of reiterate these all the way through the course, and you'll find that the ones we cover right now in this video are going to be the ones that you use forever in Photoshop. At least the ones you use the most. Okay, so a couple of things I want to do now is I want to transform this guy here. Okay, he's just too big. So what I can do is I've got it selected. I know it's selected because over here in my layers, okay, it's got that gray highlight, and I can turn the eye on and off, so I know it's the right one. Then go up to edit, and let's go to transform, and let's go to this one that's called scale. This one you're going to use really often. Okay, edit, transform, and scale. And what I'd like to do is, now depending on your screen, you might have to zoom out, okay, especially if it's a really big image. So we're going to learn one of our first shortcuts, okay, for navigation. We'll learn a couple in this course. Okay, and the really common one is if you're on a Mac, hold down the Command key and tap the minus on your keyboard. It's kind of up the top there near your numbers. You'll see that it zooms out. If you're on a PC, hold down the Control key and tap the minus. Okay, so minus zooms out, and plus zooms in. So give a practice with that. Hold down Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and just tap plus to zoom in, minus to zoom out. So minusing is going to allow us to see the edges of this transform box we've got here when we're scaling. Now what we're going to do now is you can move it around by clicking the center. Avoid this little crosshairs in the middle. It's just the center of rotations. It's not something we want to mess with for the moment. So anywhere inside of here moves it around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like line it up. Photoshop has a really cool tool that's on by default. It's called Smart Guides, and it just says, hey, did you mean lining up with this guy? And you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. If yours isn't kind of snapping to the edges like mine, go into View and just check that under Show. Down here, you've got a tick next to Smart Guides. That'll just make sure that's on. Okay, so what I want to do now is resize it. I'm going to grab this bottom corner, just drag it. And what you'll notice is that if I just drag it, it's going to potentially distort it. You could drag it and kind of hopefully get it there. But a nice little trick is while you're dragging it, okay, before you let go, is hold down the Shift key. Okay, so if yours is all gone a bit wrong, let's hit Escape on your keyboard. That's the I didn't mean it button. Okay, hit Escape. Let's go Edit, Transform, go to Scale. Now, when I'm dragging this corner here, hold down the Shift key. So down on your keyboard, hold Shift, grab the corner. And what you'll notice is it locks the height and width. Now we're not looking for perfection here, just get it kind of close to these other ones. We'll look at doing it perfectly later on, but get it kind of close to the right size. And last thing you need to do when you're using scale is that you need to hit the Enter key on your keyboard. Otherwise, it's kind of halfway through something. See all these dots on the side? It means, hey, I'm busy doing scaling now, you can't do anything else. Because if you go up to your panels along the top here, you see they're all grayed out. It just means you can't do anything until you hit Enter or Return. All right, so let's zoom in. You know what the shortcut is now. Remember, it is Command plus on a Mac or Control Plus on a PC. And I want you to go in nice and tight because I want to show you one more shortcut before we go. And that is kind of moving around once you're in this sort of kind of really close. You have to be zoomed right in so that the image goes off the edges. And say I want to go over here to the right. Okay, you can use these little sliders. Okay, this is the caveman way. If you feel like you want to be caveman, you can just drag these little scrubbing things up and down, and that totally works. Because you might feel a little overloaded with shortcuts already. So, but if you aren't, I'm going to give you one of the really common navigation shortcuts, is that you just need to hold down the spacebar key. So spacebar on your keyboard, you can see my little cursor changes from that little move tool to the little hand, and then just click, hold the mouse and kind of drag it across. Okay, that's going to be it for the basic navigation for Photoshop. We're obviously going to build on these skills later on. So if you feel like, man, I didn't get every single one of those, don't worry, we'll cover them again and again as we move through the course. So just to recap, whenever you need to move one image to another, okay, click on it, grab the move tool, click, hold, drag, wait, drag it down, let go. You often need to resize, okay, and it's under Edit, Transform Scale. But to make sure the height and width doesn't get all distorted, you hold down, which key was it? It's a test. Say it in your head. Yeah, it's Shift. Okay, Shift just means that the height and width won't get distorted. And remember, when you're finished, you've got to hit the return key, otherwise life doesn't work. The couple other shortcuts that I jumped to there was the zooming in and out, which is Command plus and minus on a Mac, or Control plus and minus on a PC. And holding down the spacebar allows you to click, hold, and drag and move around. All right, that is going to be it for this video. We're going to get into doing some actual photoshopping in the next video, I promise. So, yep, let's finish it there. I will see you in the next one. Hi there. In this video, we're going to look at something called levels. It's the thing I do the most in Photoshop. I open up an image and I sharpen up the blacks and the whites. Ready, steady. Cool, huh? Here's another example. Looks good, and then bam, looks better. All we're doing is making the blacks and the whites super strong using something called levels. Let's go and do it now in Photoshop. All right, let's get started. So from your exercise files, go to File, Open, and we're working in our exercise files, and we're going to be using O2 color. So double click to go inside there. Inside of here, we're going to open up levels O1. Click open. All right, so first thing is we're going to find this adjustments panel. Okay, so this is where we find a lot of the adjustments we're going to do in this color section. If you can't find it, go up to Window and come down until you find adjustments, and it should have a little tick next to it. Cool, and if you hover above them all, you can kind of see, I can't point to it as well, but you can see the name appears up here, watch. Okay, so the one you're looking for is levels. It's this kind of histogram looking bar chart type thing. Click on him once. Cool, and what ends up happening is nothing. Except to know that we've got this little new layer that we'll talk about in a little bit, and this big ugly thing opens up. Okay, now this thing is simpler than it looks, okay, because let me show you the technique here. Basically, this is all the color information in our document. And you'll notice down the bottom here, there's a black little pointer, there's a kind of a gray one and a white one. Basically what it's showing is that there's no really white information and no really black information. There's a chunk of other stuff. There's quite a lot of light gray. You can kind of see in here, there's a lot of light gray. And even then, that doesn't really matter. Basically, what you want to do is grab the dark guy and drag him to the right. Click, hold, and drag him. How far? Just keep an eye on my image over here. You see the further I drag him, the darker it gets. What we want to do is basically drag him to the kind of first hump. Okay, so halfway up the first little hump here. And you'll notice that if I turn my preview on and off, okay, so my levers layer here, turn the eyeball on and off, it just really sharpens up the shadows or the dark parts. Same with the other side. Grab the white, drag it to the left, and how far do you drag it? Basically just halfway up the first hump. Or at least until you feel like it's looking good, okay? There's no like absolute science here. It really depends on your image, but that's the really good place to start. Drag the both ends in until they're halfway up the hump, and often it'll fix your image. There's no specific way to drag it. It just depends on your image. So I can drag it to the left and it lightens it up, and drag it to the right and it darkens it up. So it really depends where you want it to be. I'm just dragging it back and forth, looking at my image until I find something that I like. Remember, turn the eye on and off. Have I made it better? Have I made it worse? Okay, it's better. It's pretty oversaturated, it's pretty sharp. And that, my friends, is how levels work. And it is the thing I do most often when I open up an image, especially if it's something I've taken myself, and it's a way to kind of really get the rich blacks and the pure whites. And what Photoshop has done is that it's put it on a layer that I can turn on and off. So later on I can come back to this and either make adjustments, okay, or just turn it off and go back to the original. It's very quick, it's very easy. What you're going to do now is a little exercise. Go to File, go to Open, and there's one in there called Levels 2. Now what I've done throughout this course is that if there's ones that I've taken from a website called Unsplash, Unsplash is a cool website for commercial use images that you don't have to pay for. Okay, the only thing that they require is that you leave the artist's name and where it came from. So that's what I'm doing. So this one here came from a paid stock library site. They don't require it. I paid to use it. This one here I didn't pay for, but Matthew Hamilton and his amazing photography just needs to be credited here. Anyway, so open up Levels 2, click Open, go through the same process here. Go to your adjustments panel, find levels, drag the hills in from both sides, the center slider, try left and right depending on what you're looking for, and that will give you some practice with the most common thing to do in Photoshop, in my opinion. And in my current opinion, it is time to get on to the next video. All right, see you over there. Hey there, in this video, we're looking to enhance colors. I hate saying the word make colors pop, but that's kind of what we're doing. We're just trying to kind of like lift some of the colors. So we're gonna take this image that we've been working on and ready, just kind of richen it up, especially the background stuff. This image here, ready, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, colors are definitely enhanced and maybe some popping going on. Now this technique is after levels is one of the first things I do. So step 2 in my fixing up my images is levels first, which we did in the previous video, and then I look at vibrance just to kind of lift and raise some of the colors without going too far. We might have gone a little too far in this image, but that's okay. Let's learn how to do it now in Adobe Photoshop. All right, to get started, we're going to open up 2 files from that same folder called O2 Color. I've got open Vibrance 01 and Vibrance 02. Vibrance 02 is from Malvistita magazine. Great, so we're going to have Vibrance 1 to start with. And what we're going to do is, in our adjustments panel, we're going to use this one here. It looks like a kind of a V with a gradient in the middle. It's the Vibrance adjustment. Click on that. Now I just mentioned that vibrance is a good replacement for saturation in most cases. Okay, so if you have dabbled in Photoshop before and you use the hue and saturation slider, okay, saturation is fine, but vibrance is definitely better. Why is vibrance better, in my opinion? Vibrance, what it does is it looks at the image, okay, and let's say the shoes are quite red already. Okay, but this kind of colored boards in the background are quite washed out. So what vibrance does is, watch this, if I drag up saturation to the top, kind of to get this really blue color in the background here kind of popping, this red has to be oversaturated, okay, and gets too much. So I'm gonna turn that back to 0. What happens with vibrance is, watch this, when I drag this up, you'll notice that the blue in the background gets better, but it leaves the already saturated colors alone. So it's just generally just a really good, I don't normally drag it up this high. I've got this example just because we've been using it already. Let's have a look at the Vibrance 02. Okay, so same thing. I've got to my adjustments panel, I'm gonna go to the vibrance, and watch what happens when I drag up the saturation. It kind of, like, I'm going way too high, right? I'm going all the way up to 100, but you'll see the greens start getting quite strong and the blues come out of here. Let's go down, up, down, up. Okay, but the problem is these colors that already had quite a strong color in them, okay, they start becoming kind of, I don't know, surreal or hyperreal, just a bit too saturated. So let's leave this here and crank up this vibrance, and you'll notice that the greens are the leaves. You might not notice, so I've got it up to 100 and I'm going to turn the eyeball on and off. You'll notice that like the blue in here really came on strong, which is cool. And the leaves got a warmer kind of green in there, but you'll notice the bag down here, or at least the colors in here in the, I'm going to call it a scarf, they get a little bit more, but not as much as these. So it's more like the already saturated colors just get a little tweak, and the ones that are just quite weak in terms of their color saturation can get it lifted up, okay, to match some of those more saturated colors. All right, that is going to be it for vibrance. You can use both of them, vibrance and saturation, to go completely overboard. But that is it. All right, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, vibrance. Hi there, in this video, we're gonna change the color of stuff. Okay, so we're gonna change it green and make it pink, and then actually pick any color we like. Same with this one here. We've got red shoes and ready, green shoes. All right, it's super quick, it's super easy. We're gonna use the hue and saturation adjustment panel. Let's do it now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, let's open up 2 files. They're in the same color folder we've been working in. Open up Hue 01 and Hue 02. Okay, with Hue 01 open, let's go to Adjustments, And to change the color, we use this one called Hue and Saturation. Click on him. And what we want to do is under Hue, okay, this Hue slider here, grab this little, I call it a little house, white house, okay, a little arrow thing there, click it, hold it and drag it left. And slowly but surely, see the colors updating. Go on. Okay, drag it all the way to the right as well. Okay, that'll get you through your full range of colors available. And one thing you might do is I'm going to pick any sort of color here. Okay, and the other one you might play around with is saturation. Okay, so they say the color's not quite, poppy enough for you. Click, hold, and drag it up a little bit. I'm going to max mine out. Okay, it goes a bit too high, but you can kind of see I can just raise it up a little bit. Cool. And I want you to do the same thing for, this is the one we worked on earlier for levels. Okay, Hue 02. Do the same thing. Open up Hue and Saturation, drag it around, see if you can change the color. Nice and easy and fun. Just a little side note here is I've worked on a few jobs where I've been in charge of photographing, say, a product. Let's say it was glasses. Okay, so we photographed, there was the same style but a range of colors. So what we did is what everyone does is that you photograph kind of one of them. Okay, say we pick the color red and we photograph it. We get the right angles and we try a few things with lighting. We get it right. And instead of, you know how when you're on Amazon or eBay and you're going through the different color options and somehow magically that shirt or those glasses, they're in the exact same position but different colors. And you're like, how did they line those up and photograph them all perfectly? They didn't. Okay, it was somebody like me who went, yeah, let's just do one. And later on in Photoshop, I'll go and adjust them. And yeah, I sat there with the glasses and went, yeah, the blue color. And then I grabbed the slider and went, yeah, with the blue color. And I'll be looking at the glasses in my hand and looking at the Photoshop and going, yeah, it's close enough. Okay, and it was that. It's like, I feel like it's a confession. Okay, but yeah, that's the easy and quick way. Color matching is super hard regardless, lighting and stuff affect it. And if you, like me, had no budget and just needed to get them done, it's a quick and easy way to adjust the hue. All right, so practice with Hue 02, and I will see you in the next video where we start looking at selectively adjusting the hue. I'll explain more in the next video. Hey there, in this video, we're going to change just one particular color in an image rather than the whole thing. See the yellow in the glasses here and the yellow in the shoe? Ready? Hey presto, magic, the green and blue and all sorts of other cool colors. Let's go for pink. Same with this image, Chuck Taylor's, all sorts of cool colors. Okay, and it's only affecting the shoes, not the color in the background. Let's learn how to do that now in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, from the same folder that we've been using called color, let's open up Selective Hue 1 and Selective Hue 02. Okay, and we're going to start with 01. And we're going to go, like we did before, we're going to use the adjustments panel and we're going to go to Hue and Saturation. Now the problem though is if I use Hue, and I just want to change, say, just the shoe here. So I'm going to put it back to 0. Okay, I just want to change just this part, or let's do the yellow. Okay, the yellow of the sunglasses and the yellow of the shoe here. But to change it, if I want to make it pink, okay, where we go. So the yellow sunglasses are now pink, which is awesome, but everything else has changed color. It's kind of cool, but it's not what we want. We want to just change the yellow. So put him back to 0. And what you do is see this thing that says master, okay? That's doing everything. What you can do is you can be selective about the colors. So you say, I want to just change yellows, please. So click on yellows and start dragging that. And voila, okay, it'll affect just the yellows. Cool, huh? Okay, so now you are going to be pink. Nice. Like always, it's an adjustment layer. I can turn it on and off. I can always go and amend it. Now there will be times where, let's say I want to change just the sunglasses yellow, but not this yellow. That's going to require us to do a selection and a mask, which is a little bit later in the course. Definitely doable, okay? But if you want to change everything that's yellow, super easy, just select it from this drop down and adjust it. I'd like you to practice with Selective Hue 2, okay? Adjust both the background color and the shoes. So reds, and this guy here, I'm giving it away, it's cyans. Okay, so do the same thing as we did earlier on. Have a practice, and I will see you in the next video. Hi there, the name of this video is pretty much a giveaway. We're going to turn colorful images into black and white images. But the cool thing is we're going to have lots of control about how it goes black and white. Same with this one, black and white it. Okay, color, black and white. We're even going to add a tint to recolor it. All right, exciting times. Let's get into it in Photoshop. Okay, so to get started, let's file open. And let's open up two files from the color folder. It's called black and white. There is an 01 and an 02. We'll start with 01. Now there's a few ways in Photoshop to make things black and white. The best way, in my opinion, is under adjustments. There's a slider here. Okay, this one here called black and white. Second row down, third one in. Click on that. Again, it's this non-destructive layer, which is cool because you can turn it on and off. And up here, okay, depending on what you last did, okay, you might set it back to default and it's made it black and white. Now, what's cool about this is that it is adjustable. So if I turn this eyeball off, you'll see that this is kind of considered reds, right? But let's say when I convert it to black, it's this gray, but say I want it to be darker. The reds I can drag this way. You can see you can kind of like, you got more control about it going black and white rather than going full black and white and then trying to fix it with something like levels. You've got this kind of full control here. So you just go through and decide like how you want this thing to do. So let's say I find that too dark. So I'm just gonna raise the reds. Okay, I want this color here. What color is it? It is like a cyan. So I'm gonna grab the cyan and try and make it lighter. I'm trying to make it a little bit more monochromatic, I guess. So you just work your way through until you find something you're happy with. Now, one little tip for you is this option here. Okay, if you hover above it, it's got a terrible name. Okay, it's got this drag an image and modify slider. Okay, so you can click on this little hand here, and what it allows you to do, instead of having to like work out what color that is, you saw before I turned the eye on and off, I'm like, your cyan, your magenta, and then turning it back on and trying to adjust them here, you can actually just drag on this. So I've got this selected, it goes a darker color, and let's say I want to darken up this, I click, hold with my mouse, drag it right to make it lighter, drag it left to make it darker. So often this is just easier. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of just drag them around. Maybe the background needs to be a little bit lighter. So it picks the colors for you. Say this guy here, I want you to be a bit darker to match this. Now, obviously the colors are being used in more than one place. So you will find that, okay, you might have to rob this one and kind of deal with the consequences where the color's being used over here as well. Later on when we get into masking, you will be able to kind of just work on a particular object. But for the moment, we're just doing some adjustments, clicking, holding, and dragging. Let's jump to the second example, do the same thing, and I'll show you one last trick. So adjustments, we're gonna go to black and white. I love this little inky stuff in water. We'll use this a little bit throughout the course, but I'm introducing it now mainly because I am sick of looking at shoes. Okay, I've decided for a shoe theme for this course. I kind of regret it. We're only at like video 10. So now we've got ink and water, and what we're going to do, the same thing as before, we can just adjust these, okay, but it's probably easier to click on this and say, because you see there's like two main colors in this ink splodge thing. Okay, so I'm going to turn them on, and you can just kind of start dragging. And let's say I want to make it everything darker, so I'm just dragging it to the left, okay, and it just kind of picks what colors. Okay, work around, maybe a bit too dark down here. Okay, so that on art dragger thing is pretty cool. I can turn it off. The thing I wanted to show you was this thing here called tint. We kind of looked at something called colorize when we did hue and saturation. This thing here works the exact same way. It's just a handy way of doing it. Black and whiting it in one color and going to tint. And this color here is the color it's been applied. So it's got this sepia old world color now. I can click on this and you can pick any color you like. So you drag this hue slider up and down to find the kind of color range you want. Let's say I want kind of a warm pink. Click OK. And now when I go to my little on art slider here, I'm going to decide to drag it so it's just a bit brighter. Cool, huh? So it's a good way of, you're meant to be using it just to tint it, but we've totally colorized this thing here. So there's the extra little tip. And that is it. Black and whiting is pretty easy. You get a bit of control, a little bit of extra adjustment with this little slider, and you can tint it if you need to. And always, it's non-destructive, so this thing is just underneath, ready to go. You can delete this layer by clicking it, and see this little trash can down here? You can delete him. I'm super happy with myself, so I am going to leave it here, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Hey there, it is gradient time, and what we want to do is this image here, we've added this cool retro kind of style gradient. I'm going to show you how to do that now in Adobe Photoshop. Let's go. First up, let's open up two images. Okay, it's in the same color folder. It's called Gradient 01 and Gradient 02 from Jordan Andrews. Thank you, Jordan. So we're going to start with Gradient 01. We're going to do two things. We're going to add gradient to text and we're going to add it to the image in the background. We'll do the text first as it's the easiest to do. Okay, so we're going to have a full section on doing type a little bit later in the course, but for now, click on this capital T, your type tool, click once on your keyboard, okay, and over here, in terms of the font size, pick a font, any font you like, okay, and a size, I've got mine up to about 80, okay, yours is probably defaulting to 10 or 12, and over here, okay, we're going to type in all, I'm going to put a return in, start. Don't worry too much about type at the moment. To move your type around, we're going to use our move tool, okay? And I'm just going to click and drag it around. So adding a gradient to this, changing the color of the font's easy. You can double click it here, pick a new font, but let's look at adding a color. Okay, to do it, you need your text layer selected. There's mine. It's got the gray box around it. And down the bottom here, there's one called Effects, and there's one in here called Gradient Overlay. Now, what you'll find in Photoshop is that pretty much true of everything you do in Photoshop. There's like 3 or 4 different ways of doing the same thing. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to give you, I guess, like there's about 3 different ways of applying gradients. This way I feel like is the most bulletproof in terms of future-proofing. Just means it's going to work probably on most circumstances, whereas some of the other gradients don't work in all cases. Anyway, what I'm saying is that later on you might go, hey, why didn't he show me that version of this thing? And you like it better. It's totally cool. Do it. If you stumble across a different way of doing something, totally. There's nothing right or wrong about it. I'm just trying to, I guess, cut it down to the most usable versions. So, gradient overlay. And by default, it'll depend on what you last had selected. Now, what we're going to do is where it says gradient, click on this little arrow here. Let's move them up so we can kind of see. Click on this little drop down arrow. By default, you've got some horrific drop shadows. Okay, well, gradients, sorry. Okay, some terrible ones. If you need rainbow colored gradients, you, my friends, are all in luck. Okay, so what we're going to do is have to go and customize it. So let's start with this first one, black to white. It's the easiest one to customize. Let's click on the little arrow to pop it back up. So what we want to do now is change the colors used. And you do it by clicking in this color bit here. That's why it's a little bit confusing using gradient overlay. Okay, so you click on this anywhere in this color box, this thing pops up. Okay, and what we're going to do is use the bottom parts of these houses. Okay, so not the top parts, use this bottom bit. So let's double click this first color swatch. Okay, and using this hue slider, drag it up, drag it down, find a color that you want to use. Okay, I'm going to use this one, click OK. Double click this white house. Same thing, drag this hue slider up and down until you find a color you want to use, then click in here. Okay, and you'll have that blue to purple, or at least magenta. Click OK. Well, let's click OK again and have a look at some of the settings. So where it says reverse, just flips it top to bottom. We are using the linear style, so it goes in a line from top to bottom. You can adjust that, which angle. Okay, you can see now it's going kind of more left to right from this side to this side. You can decide any size. Linear, you can play around with radial, and you can experiment on your own, the different ones, angle, reflection, they're just kind of different ways. You can see the gradients are on both sides. We're just going to go for linear in this case. And in terms of the scale, you can lower it down, it makes a bit more sense. And then it's just got like only a tiny little gradient between these type here. Cool, I'm gonna leave mine at 100%. That's what yours is probably set to. Now, before we do the images, I'm gonna show you gradients are kind of back in, right? When I guess, not even that long ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, gradients I didn't even have in the class because who used gradients? So gradients have come around full circle and are super cool now, right? Or at least I think so. So where I get my gradient colors from, I'm gonna show you a cool little site. It's this site here, it's called Gradient. I love it. All it does is just show you examples of cool gradients. And yeah, once you've found one you like, let's say we click through here, okay, you can see there's a bunch of different options. Okay, I like on page 2 this one here. It's my favorite one. You'll probably notice it from other videos that I've made, but this is where I get my colors from. Now, to get those colors into Photoshop, the easiest way is, see down the bottom here, there's this yellow and pink. So those are the 2 colors, right? If you click on it, okay, that is the number you want. It's this hash, and then it's got some letters and some numbers. So just copy that on your keyboard. So on my Mac, it's Command-C to copy, or you can right-click and go to copy. Jump back into Photoshop. And in Photoshop, remember when we clicked on to change color, it's that big color bar there. Double click the green, blue house. And this is where it goes down here. I'm gonna paste it in. I'm gonna paste everything. I don't think we need the hash. It doesn't seem to mind it at all. You can see the hashes over here. So that's an easy way to pick a color from the internet, is using these letters and numbers. Let's click OK. I'm gonna jump back into Gradient. Grab this end here, grab this. I'm gonna leave the hash off, copy it. Back to Photoshop, double click this house, grab him, paste this one. I love those colors. I'm gonna click OK. Click OK again. You can make any last adjustments, but that's it for, it doesn't really matter what it is. And we've done it for type. I'm gonna click OK. but it doesn't really matter what the layer is. There's a little adjustment we need to do for images, but if it's a logo you've brought in or a shape from somewhere you've made in Illustrator or brought in, or drawn it with the shape tool, which we'll look in a second to do, you can just have it selected, down at effects and go to gradient overlay. Now the next thing I want to do is this image in the background, and there's a slightly different process, okay? Because first of all, if I click on background, this effects is grayed out. And this is going to happen throughout our Photoshop course where you just, it's locked, okay? And it's called background. To unlock the background, double click background, okay? Give it a name, okay? Mine is shoes. And now it becomes unlocked and I get to add that effects. Okay, so that's half of the thing we need to do. Now click on effects, make sure that layer is selected, and go to gradient overlay, just like we did before. The only trouble is, it's kind of doing exactly what happened here, but I can't see the image. So what ends up happening is you need to, we've talked about all of this stuff. It's this one here, blending mode. Okay, blending mode is a way of this gradient blending with the image itself. Okay, so click on normal and just dissolve does nothing. Darken does something. Okay, and you're just gonna have to work your way through until you find a way, a blend that works with your particular gradient and the colors in your image. Now there's no like absolute one you should pick from this. It really depends on your image and the colors in your gradient. So it's a bit of a lottery. Okay, so click on multiply, see if that works for you. And I'm just gonna work way through until I pick something that I like. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up. Color burn, linear burn. You're just gonna watch me now go through them all. Lighten I kind of like. It's kind of got that retro 80s, but in that kind of hipstery way. It's hard to explain, right? But gradients are cool now. Lighten, I know screen's kind of a nice one. Color dodge, not so good. Okay, I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I decided I either liked hard light or I liked screen, and that's totally, sorry, lighten. That's totally just based on my gradients and my images, and I'm going to leave it there. So that's the difference between doing images and just say straight off text or shape, okay, is that first of all, you need your layer unlocked. Then you add the effect like you do normally, and just make sure when you do add your gradient, you change that blending mode. Oh, before I go, probably super important point that I haven't brought out yet is say you want to adjust this gradient now. Okay, I'll turn it off. See All Star here? You can kind of see the structure. That's my whole layer, and these are the effects. Okay, I can turn either the effect or the gradient itself off to show through that original red color. Okay, so what we can do to edit it, so to turn it off, that's all you need to do. Just leave it there. Okay, but to edit it, I'm gonna have the eyeball on, double click the word gradient overlay, double click. Okay, and you'll see it's gray here and it's got a little tick. Okay, you might be accidentally on something else. So I'm gonna untick that, make sure this is gray. Okay, and that's where you can go and make adjustments. So let's say that I don't like that anymore. So I'm going to reverse it or play with a different blending mode as well. Okay, but that's how you make adjustments. Okay, I'm probably going to turn it off and make this back to white. Okay, so text selected. My little properties panel here would tell me what color that I'm using. I clicked on it, and to get white, just as a little other thing before we go is, watch this, any of these hues, it doesn't matter. If I click, hold, and drag, and I'm dragging kind of past where I need it, because up in the top left is white, and down in the bottom left is black. So what I do is instead of trying to like, some people like just try and click in there, and you get it pretty close, but if you click, hold, and drag past, so I'm holding my mouse down and dragging it past, that assures it's white. All right, I'm gonna click OK. And if you want to tidy this effects up, so I've turned it off so you can't see it, but say that you're pedantic and you've got a bit of OCD and you want to get rid of this, you can click, hold, and drag it to this trash can, and that will get rid of it. All right, so it's project time. I'd like you to practice using this one here. Okay, so I don't mind what text you use, but definitely play around with the gradient, okay, on the image. Okay, go to gradient, pick a color, pick your own colors. You can do your own colors. And I'd like to actually see it this time though. You've been following me along. What I'd like you to do is I'd love to see your own one. So dig through your files and see if you can find an image that you're happy to share. Okay, and it can be your family, it can be your house, you can take a quick photo now of yourself, okay, and I want to see what kind of gradients and stuff you're doing. And you can either post it here on this page, or you can share it with me on social media. On Instagram is Bring Your Own Laptop, okay, or on Twitter it's Dan Loves Adobe. Either way, do an image, can be this one, it can be your own one, and I'd like to see what you've done. All right, that is going to be the end of this one. Let's jump into the next video. I'll see you over. Bye. Hey there, in this video, we're going to create a document of a specific size. In this case, it's going to be a postcard, but you can do the same thing for US letter or A4, A3. It's a great way of getting started on a specific size, ready to go for your project. All right, let's learn how to do that now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new page and bring our image into it. I find that so much easier. It doesn't matter whether you're new or advanced, it's just easier to do it that way rather than, let's say, opening up the image, okay, and then going to image and go to canvas size and then kind of cropping it down and which way does it crop. And that's a way of doing it, but I'll show you this sneaky way. It's a little bit easier. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to go to File and we're going to go to New. I find it's better to create a document the right size and then drag our content into it. Now in this new document window, you can totally just like start typing sizes and resolution, okay? You can change it from inches to pixels to millimeters. Up the top here are some handy presets. So I can go to photo and I've got my kind of traditional photograph ratios. I've got print, there's my US and A4 sizes. Now just know that there's this little thing that says view more, because there's all sorts of stuff all tucked in there. Art and illustration web. And the one we want a postcard, and this is hidden under art and illustration. You can see him there. Click on him. Now, just so you know as well, this is the US size for postcards. Postcards, turns out weirdly, as I've moved around the world, aren't the same size like business cards. They're all different in different parts of the world, which is kind of weird. But anyway, 4 inches by 6 inches. I want mine to be landscape. Okay, and we're not gonna just leave everything here matching mine, the resolution the same and the color mode. We'll talk about those a little later in the course. They're boring, not boring, but we'll do them a little bit later. So yours looks like mine. Let's click create. Great, so there's my postcard. First thing we want to do is we want to go to File and try and save it. Weirdly in Photoshop, there's one of those little weird things where it won't let you save it. It's basically saying like you haven't done anything. Nothing worthy of saving, at least. I don't know why. So you can either do something like grab the type tool and start typing, or just go to File, Save As. You end up at the same place. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put mine on my desktop. I'm going to call mine All-Star Postcard. All-Star Postcard. Now at the end here, I like the V system, V1, V2, V3. Never call it draft or final. Final is like the kiss of death. If you call it final, you'll be calling it final 2. Some of you are laughing because that's what you do. I do it too. V1, V2 works for me, and I'm going to click save. Next thing I want to do is I want to bring in my gradient kind of background thing. And so I'm going to open up the file I was working with earlier. So say you are following along with this course, you might have a file saved somewhere neatly, okay, that's got this gradient that we worked on in the last video. Okay, if you don't, you can go to File, Open, and open up under Exercise Files, under Shapes, O3 Shapes. There's one called Gradient Image, just to save you in case you forgot to save it. I'm using this original one. Okay, it's got text and stuff on here. What I want to do is I'm going to click on the word shoes, okay, or whatever that layer is. I'm going to grab my Move tool, okay, click, hold, and drag. I'm going to move it, hold, holding, and drag it down here. Why I find this easier is, can you see it's actually not the right size? Okay, I find it's just easier to do this and maybe transform it. So with it selected, edit, transform, scale, and I can see it's just a little too big, so I can hold down Shift, and it's still the wrong proportion, so I'm gonna kind of leave it there and holding Shift on the corners and get it to the right size. All right, friends, that is how to create a document. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. We just did a postcard, but you can do anything. And I find it's easier to like bring everything you need into it and resize it to what you need, knowing that it is ready to go. All right, let's get into the next video. Hi there, in this video we're going to make shapes and more shapes and other shapes, and there's a rectangle with a corner on it, there's a star with another star. Oh, it is shape-tastic. Let's get in there now and learn how to do this properly in Photoshop. All right, to get started, basically we're going to be using this little menu item here. So I click, hold, and drop it down. Okay, so I just click, hold my mouse key down until I get these options. Let's start with the ellipse tool. Okay, and what we're going to do is up the top here, you can pick a fill for your ellipse. So give it a click and then pick anything you like. If you want to pick a more custom color than just the random ones in here, you can click on this little kind of rainbow icon here. You get that color picker that we've used a few times. Okay, slide the hue up until you find something you want to use. Pick this one, click OK. Cool, and you can kind of just click anywhere up here to get rid of that fill drop down. Great, so what we want to do is click, hold and drag, okay, and you'll get kind of any old shape. So if I go to edit, step backwards, and what we want to do is, we did this with the rectangle marquee tool. Who remembers what key we hold down on our keyboard to get it to go like, to be a perfect circle? Yep, you remember, it's shift. Okay, so if I hold shift down, okay, it just kind of makes the height and width locked in. Okay, if you get it to a size and you're like, well, it's not quite right, you don't have to keep going back. You can go to edit, transform path, and go to scale. Okay, and the same thing, hold down shift on one of these edges, drag it out, and you can make it nice and big. I'm making mine super big. Something like that. When you're finished, hit return on your keyboard, otherwise it doesn't work. So hit return, yeah, that's how to draw an ellipse. The cool thing about using this particular tool here, they're called shape paths, is that they are scalable, they are vector, they can go up and down in size, no problem. Let's look at some of the other shapes. We're going to use a rectangle. It seems pretty boring, okay, but hold on, because there's some things you can do with it. So with it selected, pick a fill color. I'm going to use black in this case. There he is. Don't have that selected. Okay, so edit, step backwards. Okay, so don't worry about the color for the moment, or what you can do is, see this layers panel? You can click in this kind of like dark gray area that kind of makes sure nothing is selected. Now I can pick a fill color of black. Black even. Cool. Stroke is the line around the outside. I'm going to turn it on just to show you. So I'm going to have a white line around the outside. It's going to be, say, 3 pixels, just for an example. I don't really want a stroke, but I want to show you how it works. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a rectangle kind of about here. Cool. And you're like, yeah, that's a rectangle, Dan. You can, what you've got to see is this properties over here. The cool thing about using this particular tool is that these can be adjusted. You can see that the stroke here can be made really thick. Oh, that's too thick. Okay. You can decide where the stroke sits, which is this option, I think here. Nope, it is this option, first one. So there's the inside of the square that is across the, you can see either side of that square, or this one is the outside of the square. I don't want any of them. Don't like you stroke. I'm gonna click on it, and I'm just clicking on the strokes, that little icon there, and see this little red line? That means no stroke, please. Okay, awesome. Other things you can do with rectangles, still not very exciting, is these corners here. So I am going, at the moment it's, with the, yours is probably defaulted to this, where it's got a dark gray box. Watch, click it. It's not really obvious, okay, but if you have it off, so it should look like this, and what I'm going to do is you can change the one particular corner. So I'm going to do, say, 20 pixels in this corner, hit return, and you can see I've got a 20 pixel radius. It's not probably big enough for you to see. 50 pixel radius. I'm going to zoom in so we can all see it together a little easier. The person editing this video is probably like, you should have done that earlier. You've had to move around. Anyway, so a nice little trick with this is, who knows what 50 pixels is? Like, it really depends on your image size. So what I find is quite useful is, see these little icons here? Pretty much all the icons in Photoshop, you can hover above them. See this like little hand with arrows? Click, hold, and drag it to the right. You can see it goes up, and you can see my little, this guy changing over here. Drag them back to go to a square, drag them back. You can lock them together. So when you do drag them all up, they all go together. All back to 0. What I want is, I just want this one to be a little bit rounded, and we're going to reshape it later on when we do our type. It's going to be that box there eventually. A couple other things we'll do is I'm going to zoom out, Command minus, and I want to do stars up in the corner, these guys here. Okay, so stars are not tricky, but watch this. Click and hold down. They come into this one called the polygon tool. Give them a click, and by default, okay, it's going to give me a polygon. Not even sure what shape that is. Pentagon? I want to say pentagon. And you can change the sides up here. I can have 10 sides. And now it's something I can't name. Let's go to undo. I'm using the shortcut. So edit step backwards is this one here. It's on a Mac, it's pretty crazy. It's Command Option Z, steps backwards. On a PC, it's Control Alt Z, just kind of steps backwards. Okay, so I use that quite a bit. I'm probably going to use that from now on in the course. If you see me going backwards and undoing, I'm just going to this option here, using my sneaky shortcut. Great, so what I want to do is I want a 5-sided star, but what I want to do is see this little cog here. Okay, before you start drawing, click on star. Play around with the inset. 50% is going to give you a traditional star. So this one here, you can undo it and just experiment. Have a little play around with the indents by I quite like this one. If you get down to like 15 and then turn the sides up to 50, you get this kind of like starburst. That's quite a handy one for, I don't know. It's how I buy my wine. Okay, I look at the label and does it have lots of these gold stickers on it? I don't even read them, but it's how I buy my wine. With this layer selected, I'm going to click on the trash to get rid of it, and I'm going to get my star. So polygon tool, sides back to 5, click on the little cog, and I'm going to say 50%. If you go to 80%, they're going to be super spiky. You can smooth the edges of it as well. Just have a little experiment. We're just going to do a traditional star. Okay, I'm going to draw it out. And if you want it straight, okay, it's our magical key that we've done. We've used it a few times now because at the moment it's just going to be any old size. So I'm going to drag out and hold down the shift key. You see it kind of locks it into like more usable shapes. It's not straight up and down. I don't know why, but you can this way. Yeah, we go. Eventually I got it. Okay, so hold shift and just kind of rotate it around until you get the kind of, it's locked it into a symmetrical shape. That's what I want to say. Let's have a look at changing the color of this. So with this layer selected up the top here, I'm going to pick white. One thing is that say this color disappears, it's probably because you're in your move tool. If you're on this layer on a move tool, it's great for moving around, but if you want to go back to shape it, okay, just have this tool selected, make sure that layer is selected, and this will pop back up. You could leave now because that's almost it for shape. So I'm going to look at some opacity because I want to recreate this kind of star effect and this thing here. So hang around. I'm actually going to draw that circle down there as well. So you can totally leave if you know how to change the opacity already. Yeah. So I want to transform this guy to make him smaller. Okay, so layer selected, edit, transform, scale. Now, what I'm going to do for the rest of this course is, that is a super long way. I'm going to use the shortcut, and it's this one here, free transform. It does a bit of all of these things. It does scale really easily. So I'm going to use Command T. Okay, you don't have to. You can come in here and use this version, but Command T is just a super good shortcut to learn. So it's Control T on a PC. So I'll hold Command T. Okay, and same thing, hold Shift in the corners and I can resize it. So I want it to be about that. Hit return. I want another version of it, so I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say duplicate layer. Polygon 2. Click OK. And what I'm going to do is the one at the bottom probably. Okay, so this guy's on top, this guy's on the bottom. I'm going to stretch him out using my super new shortcut. Ready? Command T. And I'm going to scale it out. So if I hold Shift, okay, I can drag it out there, then I can grab anywhere but the center and try and line them back up, and that generally works. Another little shortcut I'm going to share with you. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape. As escape is the I didn't mean it. I'm going to go back to where it was. So I've still got two stars on top of each other. This bottom one though, I'm going to hit my Command T, Control T on a PC. Holding Shift makes that come from the top left, okay? But if I hold Shift and Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, so look down your keyboard, hold Shift, and if you're on a Mac, hold Shift and Option. If you're on a PC, hold Shift and Alt. And what it does is, can you see the difference? It resizes from the center. I don't want to like bamboozle you too much with shortcuts, so you don't have to. You can just line it up. Use Shift and just line it up, but I want to make mine a bit bigger than it was, about there. Cool. Nothing really happens except this bottom one here. I want to lower the opacity. See the opacity slider here? I'm just going to lower it down until I find something I like. And I'm actually going to use the transform. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And we've got drop shadows on that one. That's going to make it look nicer later on, but we're not there yet. Yeah, if I want to I'm going to resize this top one as well. Actually, I want both to go a little bit smaller. Holding down both those keys. Yep. I'm going to do the same thing for the circle. Okay, so this guy selected, my ellipse, I'm going to duplicate him. So right click, duplicate layer. You should give them a name. I'm going to be honest with you. I never bother unless I'm sending it to somebody that I need to impress. Okay, and I'm going to my Command T. I'm going to grab one of these side bits, hold Shift and Option on my Mac. Make it a bit bigger. And what I'm probably going to do is, I've got the big one on top. I'm going to put it underneath With it selected, I'm going to go over here and pick a new color. We're going to look at specific colors that might match the background in a later tutorial, but that's what I'm doing. So this guy's on top, this guy's underneath, and he's just a little bit bigger. You could play with the opacity of this one as well, because it looks kind of cool. Black bar here, I lower the opacity of lots of them just to kind of, I don't know, start showing through things. It's kind of cool when there's a bit of transparency going. Last thing I want to do is I want to get this, I want it to be longer. So I'm going to use my Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and just drag it out. And the cool thing about live shapes, can you see that corner is still preserved? It doesn't matter how long, it doesn't kind of distort. Okay, so I'm going to just drag it so it's off. Even past the edge, it doesn't matter. Enter on my keyboard to finish it, and I'm going to use it as a kind of a off page into the bleed type box. One other thing I want is a little circle down here. Okay, and I'm going to be lazy. Instead of drawing out an ellipse and giving it a color, I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to duplicate him. Yes, I'm going to give this one a name because you're watching me. Let's go for small circle. Okay, and I'm going to transform it, holding down my shortcut keys, grabbing anywhere but the center, and it's going to go down here somewhere. Okay. Hit return on your keyboard. That's our epic shape building video done. Let's get into the next video where we start adding type, and then we'll do drop shadows. Loads more to do, but let's do it in a following video. Bye now. Hi there, in this video we're going to pick some colors for our shapes. I'm going to show you a cool place like this to get some ideas for colors. I'm also going to show you how to steal colors from an image. Let's get into it now and get started. Welcome back, and first up, if you can work on the file that you've worked on in the last tutorial. If you are just jumping into this particular one, if you go to File, Open, and in the file called Exercise Files, Shapes, there's this one called Coloring Shapes. Okay, open that one up. That's where we're at now. Okay, so we just randomly picked colors, and they don't quite suit the background as much as I want. So I'm going to show you kind of two awesome things to do with color. This should probably have been in the color section, but it's hard to know, like it's hard to separate them all out into sections too much. So we are going to look at just how to get nice colors. Like I get stuck in like, I'm using like that gradient there, I've used probably on every second job in the last 6 months, just because I like those colors and it's hard to break out of your color schemes. If you look at any of my designs, it's either this green, that kind of, I want to say, I don't know, mandarin-y peach color, and kind of baby blue. All my work's done like that. So the way I get out of that comfort zone and find other colors, the nicest way is under Window, and it's under Extensions, and I don't know why they hide it, so it's such a cool little thing. So Window, Extensions, Adobe Color Themes. Now you need to be connected to the net for this to work, okay? And this little panel opens up. Now the initial one's a bit boring. It's this Explore one that is quite exciting. Okay, well, exciting for me. Can you see here? It's nothing but just a bunch of cool colors. Okay, scrolling down, there's some really cool stuff in here. You can do searches in here. If I need something from the 80s, hit return. Okay, it'll do a search, and that's some pretty successful 80s colors. Type in cafe, bank, actually popular brand. Like I'm from Auckland in New Zealand, right? And weirdly, if you type in Auckland, there's universities, there's council colors. So you can find all sorts in there. If I can find obscure things from an Auckland council, then you can probably find maybe your brand and your corporate colors in there. I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm just going to hit search. Actually, I'm going to go create, and then back to explore. And yeah, like just some cool colors, right? You can say most popular this month or all time. I'm going to go to all time, and yeah, some cool colors. To use them, the best way to use them is, say you decide on this color here, okay? Panthera? Click on this little dotted line and say add to swatches. Ignore this libraries thing, we'll look at him later on. Close that down as well. And now what we can do is we can click on my ellipse. And if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, often you still need to go back to any of these path tools, okay? And you can use the fill up here. I'm using a newer version of Photoshop, so ellipse, we can change it here as well. So click on it, and you'll see down the bottom here, those are the 5 color swatches that we've added. So I can go you. And it's just a way of, I guess, picking colors that are nice. Same with this ellipse color here. I'm gonna turn the opacity back up, and I'm just gonna pick one of the colors. It's still not quite working with my colors in the background here, but what you'll find is it's just a neat way of, yeah, busting out and getting color options. Say you're doing some logos or some designs or web work, and you just need to have like 3 color options for the client. Go to Adobe Color Themes and just find some new stuff. All right, I'm waffling. Next thing I want to show you though is how to really kind of steal colors from an image. And that can quite often be a nice way to kind of definitely match the colors because yeah, just is. So I'm going to have this front ellipse selected. Okay, I'm going to click on this and nothing really needs to happen. You need to click on this hue slider and we're not really going to use this, just move them out of the way. And then see the little eyedropper? We can start working through this. The trouble is it doesn't update this automatically. It's picking the color, which is cool, but it's not going through and like, let's click OK. Now it will work. So I've picked the pink from it. I'm going to grab the green. Same thing, click on the color swatch, grab the hue slider and just move out here. And I'm going to pick one of the yellows. Or in this case, kind of an orange. Now, are the colors working for me? I'm not that happy with them. So what I tend to do, right, is say this color here, I can use my same trick, pick a different color. Say I pick something from here, something a bit warmer. And I'm not like, what I want to do is maybe just drag this little circle down a bit to get maybe something that is close to it, but maybe darker. Okay, darker that's being used in there. So it's just, yeah, you might find that works good for you. I'm going to click on this one, do the same thing. I liked that color. I just want it to be like a darker version of it. You just drag it straight down. Okay. And yeah, I've made it real ugly. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to play around now. You can leave. We've learned our 2 little tricks. Okay. Remember, window, extensions, Adobe Color Themes, pretty cool. And you can use the eyedropper tool. You just need to have it selected and start stealing colors by clicking on this, and you can just pick colors from there using that. Great explanation, Dan. Let's hit cancel. I'm now just going to mess about picking colors that I like. You can hang around if you like. What I want to do is I don't like this kind of like mud brown color, poo brown. Okay, with it selected, I'm going to go to this. You don't have to click from just here. I'm going to click on this one. So now the circles are the same colors, but I want this top one to be like this green. I like that green. I randomly picked it, but I think it kind of complements this all very nicely. Eyedropper tool, click OK. Yeah, I'm happy enough with it. One thing though, if you were dealing with corporate colors, you can click on this and just type them in here. So hopefully you've got like a corporate spec manual somewhere. Ask the marketing department. If you are the marketing department and you have no idea what the color is, import the logo and just use the same thing. Use the eyedropper to steal the color from the logo. It's not exact, but could work. Or type in the RGB colors or the CMYK colors if you can find them. I'm going to hit cancel. I am done. That is the end of the video. Let's get into the next one. All right, bye now. Hey there, in this video we're going to look at type in Photoshop. Okay, there's just two basic flavors. Okay, one is like this text box here which types on forever. Okay, and then there's this one here with the type tool which has a fixed width where you can kind of get it to type to kind of be a bit more body copy-ish. We'll learn some tricks about resizing and some other quickie little things as well. So let's get into it. Okay, so we are continuing on with the file from the last project. If you are just jumping into this one, you can open it up by going File, Open. And in your exercise files under O3 Shapes, you can open up this one called Coloring Shapes. Open that up and you'll get close to where we're at now. So we're going to use the type tool. Okay, it's reasonably simple. There's 2 kind of main ways of using it. Now, one thing to note is because we're working with all these shapes, Photoshop really likes to, I've already got the type tool selected and I'm on a shape layer like this ellipse. It's going to try and combine the text into this shape here, which is not going to work for us. So if you do run into that problems, go to undo, then go to select and go to deselect layers. So there's nothing selected. So there's 2 ways of adding text, right? If I click once, okay, and I start typing, all stars. Okay, it'll just go on forever. I'm going to select all this text. Okay, I'm dragging my mouse across it and I'm going to pick a friendlier font size for you guys to see. So just if you click once, it's just going to keep going forever. You can put a return in. Okay, so let's say I want all stars on 2 lines. I can just click in front of it, hit return, and I've got a return. let's ignore the giant leading. Actually, no, let's adjust their leading. So I'm going to select both of these guys. It's because I was playing with this earlier. The leading is the space between the lines, and it is this option here. Okay, you can kind of hover above it. It's called line spacing here, no leading. Okay, and you can set it back to often auto is a happy size. Now, the other way of adding type is let's go back to our move tool that kind of like commits that text you're done. Grab the type tool again, and instead of just clicking once, which types on forever, we're going to click and drag out a box. So I'm going to kind of start halfway in here. I've got to make sure no layers are selected, or at least none of these shape layers. I'm going to click, hold, and drag a box like this. And by clicking, holding, and dragging, what it does is it allows you to have what's called a fixed width box. Just means when I start typing, it's going to break down to the second line. Okay, so it's really good for body text. We're doing this option here, okay, where we want the text to kind of snap around. So a couple of things, useful things, is I'm going to select all my text and delete it all. Okay, I'm going to pick an appropriate font size. 20 is too big for in here. Appropriate font size is, I can't even remember. Let's go for 16 points in this case. I'm going to pick a font. I'm using Museo Sans Rounded. I like it. It's pretty. You're probably not going to have it. Okay, it's just a font that I've downloaded from something called Typekit. So just have a little look through here. Pick a font. Pick a weight. This is like bold, light, medium. But especially the font size, get it to something like 16. Okay, it's probably still too big. Let's put in 12 for the moment. And I want to show you a couple little things. One is, let's say you want to put in some fake text because you don't have it yet, right? I'm going to switch mine off being capitals, delete that. Mine's on capitals because under advanced here, advanced. Okay, I clicked on this button earlier when I was working on a side project. That just says whenever I type, make it all capitals. I've turned that off and I'm going to close that back in. Advanced is not that advanced. Okay, just has some extra stuff that you might need. I'll close it down. Back in there, please. Great, so I've got 12 points. I've picked a font. And instead of just typing in like mumbo jumbo, because you don't have the text yet, right? You're waiting for the client to have it. There is something in here that's quite handy. I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to go to type. So my cursor's flashing inside of here. Type tool, flashing inside of here. Type. There's this one called paste lorem ipsum. You probably know what that is already. If you don't, it's just mixed up Latin words. It's like, yeah, they're actual Latin words. They're just in a random order so that they're just good to hold the place of text until you get it. There's lots in there, so that it just dumps a big lot of text in there. So if you delete a word, it's probably going to be replaced by another word. Okay, it's just there's so much kind of spilling out of this. What you can do is I can click in there, go to select, and go to all. So it selects all the text and find a font size that works for me. 10 point, font, weight. Now we're going to do a couple of things, but we're not going to go through every font option like centered versus right align. You'll be able to work that out. This one is the space between lines. What I like to do as well, you can type it in here. You can go, oh, I want it to be 24. Okay, but I like to, on these icons, we've looked at it before. You can click, hold, and drag on these icons, right? Just kind of drag them up and down. If your computer's old and slow, dragging that thing just is painful. You have to type it in. Sorry about that. To move your type, grab the move tool. Okay, and make sure you're on that layer, and I'm going to move them around. That's going to work for me. What else am I going to do? I'm just going to add some type now. Okay, I'm just going to basically add this stuff in here. You can totally leave now. There's no super awesome, one super awesome trick. Okay, say there's all stars thing here. So I've got the layer selected. Instead of going and playing with the font size, which is fine, you can drag it up. You can drag it up. Okay, I'm going to undo and put it back. What I like to do is that same trick we used to scale up these circles works for fonts. Okay, so Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC. The long way, remember, is under Edit, Transform, and there's one in there called Scale. And I find this is easy. Holding Shift, I find I can just get the font size that I want roughly there. Hit Return when you're finished, and you can see it's bumped it up to a weird 44.44. In terms of the leading, I'm probably just going to drag it down a little bit. I'm probably going to make this bigger now. Now you can go. There's no super extra tricks. I'm going to grab my lorem ipsum and I'm going to drag it so it lines up. I'm going to grab this rectangle. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to move it up and I'm going to grab my type tool. I'm going to put in that C Taylor. Love you, Chuck. You made some sweet shoes. If If you're not huge on fonts, okay, often it's nice just to use the same font but different weights. So this one's the really thick 1000, or if it was another font, it might be called extra black or bold. Okay, I'm gonna turn it down to like 300. Yeah, 300. Oh, I'm gonna go full 100. Okay, font size again. Instead of using font size, I'm just using the Command T key. There's a little bit of dragging this thing around, moving it around, getting it how I want. You can keep typing it out. Often a nice little trick is this All Stars layer here. Okay, I'm gonna right click it and I'm gonna duplicate it. Should give it a name. I'm not going to, I'm just gonna drag it down because what I wanna do is grab my type tool. I'm gonna put it in a web address. So this one's gonna be www.scottshoes.com. Font size too small. Use my transform. Scott Shoes doesn't exist. So I made that up because it's my last name. You, when you're doing it, give it your own name. You could be, I don't know, Smith Shoes. I think that's an actual thing though. Oh, look, I've I've spelled shoes wrong. I kind of like it. It's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's foreign. Maybe a little too foreign. Nobody's going to find my website. Shoes. Awesome. So that's going to be it for the kind of basics for fonts. And we are going to look at doing type around a line in the next video. So let's go and do that there. All right, see you there. Hi everyone, it is time to bend your text, warp it around, do some different shapes, adjust it, and definitely look at how to turn it into a fish shape. All right, let's get started. Okay, so to start off with, you need some type. I've got this one here, so this layer here called All Stars. I'm gonna start bending that one like you saw at the front. Yeah, all we need to do is with it layer selected, be on the type tool, and then there's this little option up here. It's this kind of T with the underline underneath it. Click on him, okay, click on it, and nothing happens. Get ready for amazingness. Arcing type. Lower arc type. Okay, it's up to you what you're looking to do with the type. That's kind of getting okay. I'm not hating that. Okay, my favorite is always the fish. Everyone needs fish-shaped text. Once you got the one you want, okay, the style that you like, okay, it's definitely probably fish. Okay, you can play around with these options underneath to decide where it bends, how it bends, okay, and yeah, there's kind of, it's more just playing around, okay, and getting the type how you want. I'm going to get it back to regular by hitting cancel. Okay, with it selected, go up to this bending text tool option again and go through and experiment with some of the other ones. Inflate, squeeze. Okay, I don't do it too much ever, okay, except for fish. Starts destroying text and I'm not a big fan of that, but you might have a good use case for it. So there it is. Okay, let's click OK. One last thing to show you is if you've got it and you want to adjust it, say it's like too archy for you. Okay, with that layer selected, you can click back on this and it jumps back into where you were. And okay, you can keep editing it. If you want to get rid of it, go up to here to none. Let's click OK. All right, that's how to kind of like bend and distort it. Next one we're going to do is, I promised you, text on a path where it kind of follows a circle or any sort of shape. Let's do it in the next video. Hi there. In this video, trying to be clever here, it's text following the path. We even do this where it kind of goes around the top and around the bottom. Let's learn how to do that now in Photoshop. All right, to get started, we are going to do the squiggly line first, then we'll do that kind of badge shape. So the technique is called type on a path. So we need a path to start with. And there's a few ways of making it. We're gonna use the pen tool. If you click and hold down the pen tool for a while, hold, and we're going to use the freeform pen tool. If you are a Jedi Master with the pen tool or the curvature pen tool, you can go and use those. But if you're a mere mortal, grab the freeform. It is just as it sounds. You can just draw things. Now, to make your drawings a little bit nicer, there's a sneaky trick. See this little cog here? Click on that. Okay, what you can do is where it says curve fit, you can crank it up a little bit to say something like, it goes up to 10, but 10 is probably too much. Go up to something like 5. Okay, and what it allows you to do is when you draw, I'm going to draw like a little wiggly line there, it just makes your lines look a little smoother. Turn it down to 0 and it will follow your mouse perfectly. It's up to you what you want to do. So that's basically it. Okay, paths are weird. They don't appear in your layers panel. Okay, they appear in this paths panel, which we're not going to really look at. All we need to do is go to layers, grab the type tool. You don't need to change anything. Okay, just grab the regular old type tool and watch my cursor here. Okay, we'll zoom in so you can see my cursor's got the box around it. Watch this when it changes. Can you see a little line through it? That means it's going to follow this path. So be careful where you click on this line, okay, because that's where the text is going to start. So I'm going to click once kind of towards this end here, and voila. I'm start typing. So it's going to follow the line around. If you're finding yours is not working, it's probably because I'm going to undo. I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Let's say it's not working. I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard. That is the I didn't mean it button. Okay, get out of that. And before you go and click on here is to pick a font size. So you can do it up the top here. If you've got a font size of something really big, it just doesn't work to fit on this line. So it feels like it's not working. It is, just your font's huge. So pick something really small. Start with 5 point or something. I've got 10 point and it worked fine. Click once, start typing here. Notice I'm a terrible speller, lots of deleting. Okay, so once you've got it here, you can do some adjustments. To do the adjustments, you can select the text. Okay, and I'm going to make a bold text here. I'm going to pick a color that you can actually see, dark gray. Cool, and say we want to adjust a few things. Say we want to adjust the start point or the ending point. Actually, before we do that, you can just say center, and it will put it kind of in the middle of the beginning and end. But let's say we want to leave it left aligned and we want to just move this along. Okay, to do that, it's this tool here. Okay, it's underneath the type tool. It's called the path selection tool. Okay, you might have to click and hold down. You want the top one here. With it selected, there's two main things. Okay, there is this dot at the end. Okay, and there's this little cross at the beginning. You can kind of see the icon change. See the little arrow that appears either side? It's the beginning and the end. So I can click, hold, and drag it to say that's the beginning. Or I can drag it all the way to the end here. Okay, and make sure it's at the beginning. Now, I'm very specific about where I'm drawing because I know if I click, hold, and drag this and I drag it down, it goes on the other side and everything's lost. So it can be a little weird to get used to. Okay, if you do get it on the other side, find the beginning again, the little cross, and then try and flip it over and oh man, go. It can get weird. Even I find it a little bit troubling. So I'm gonna flip it over again. So the crosshairs, the little cross is the beginning, and this, I leave it in here because I'm going to show you it, so it's a little bit hard. So the cross is the beginning. This guy here can be a little problem. He's the end of the line. Not there, it's wherever this dot is, because what can happen is this. Oh, don't do that either. Flip it back across. So there's a little dot. If I drag it up here, can you see that the word disappears? There's just not enough room, okay, for that word to appear with this dot so far up. So you can drag it back down. Be careful not to drag it on the other side. To move this whole thing around, just go back to your move tool and you can click and drag it. To go and start editing again, make sure you have that line selected and either grab the type tool to adjust the text or this path selection tool. And we're going to start working on the circle because what we want to do is this where it goes top and bottom. So there is not a magical way of doing it. It's basically what we did up here, but using a circle. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab my tools over here, okay, my shape tools. We looked at these earlier. I'm going to use ellipse, but what I'm going to do in this case is instead of using the shape, which draws my shapes like earlier, okay, I'm going to switch it to path. The big thing to remember though is later on in this course, it remembers paths. So when I draw things, remember they don't appear as layers, they appear in here. It's a bit of a weird thing. So later on in this course, when you're trying to draw a circle and it's not appearing, you can email me, of course, okay, but it's probably because you haven't switched it back to shape. I'll just show you that. Switch it back to shape when you're finished, causes less problems, but I want this case to be a path, okay, and I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to draw it roughly the right size. Okay, I'm going to grab I'm going to move it around using the this tool here, okay, the path selection tool. I'm going to grab it so it's kind of there. I'm going to transform it using my Control T, and I'm going to get it so it's kind of sitting inside here. We need to adjust the circle later on. Hit return when you're finished. Now all we need to do is grab my type tool and just be careful when you are clicking on this line to not get this version, which has got a circle around it, or the square around it. This version here with a little line through it. You can see it's a little tricky. I'm going to click there at the top, and I'm going to say this is Scott shoes. Okay, I want to do a few things. I want to rotate it around. Now, what we can do is you can play around with the I guess center alignment, right alignment to try and get it. Or what I like to do is just rotate it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my move tool because I'm halfway through typing. So some of my shortcuts don't work. If I try and type Command T now, it doesn't work because I'm halfway through typing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to my move tool. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to use Rotate. Now I hope you're okay for a little bit of a shortcut. So I'm using Command T. We've used this a few times in the course for resizing, right? We hold Shift, okay, and we hold down, remember, Option on a Mac or Alt on the PC. So Shift and Option, okay, and I can shrink this thing in and out. That's kind of half what I want, but I want to rotate it as well. The cool thing about using that shortcut, which is Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, is that, watch this. If I grab the corner, it's scale, but if I hover just out here, I'm not doing anything, I'm just moving my mouse out here. Can you see it turns into like a little rotation arrow? So now I can click, hold, and drag it, just kind of rotate it around, move it here, kind of get it to where I need it to be. Enter on my keyboard just to commit that. I'm going to pick a font, I'm going to use white. Font size is going to be a lot smaller, 6 point, okay. It's moving around the line again, so I'm going to have to rotate it again, Command T, and just drag it around. Scotch choose. Scale it up a bit. Another little thing that's happening there is I'm trying to drag and it's kind of like snapping to things, which is kind of cool, but sometimes you just like go where I want you to go, okay, instead of jumping around. You can go to View and turn off Smart Guides, but what I like to do is on my keyboard is just use the arrow keys. So look down your keyboard, just the up, down, left, right. You can tap things around. It's kind of handy. Hit return when you're ready. And that is going to be the top part of my circle. Now, what you assume is you can type along the bottom of that same circle. That's not possible. What you need to do is just have a second ellipse, make sure it's set to path, and draw out another ellipse. Don't worry too much about the size because you're going to have to resize it to suit the circle and the font you pick. Okay, to move it around, go back to the direct selection tool, get it roughly in the right position. Grab the type tool, click once down here, and I'm going to say established, which totally missed it. Escape key. I'm going to go to edit, step backwards. And remember, you got to look out for that perfect icon. Okay, so I've got it flashing in the right place now. EST 2019. So it's doing what the top one did, okay, which is the outside. Now remember when we were doing this and we flipped it over by accident, we want to do it on purpose now. So grab the direct selection tool. What we'll do is click, hold, and drag it. And you want to drag it so it's on the other side. It's a bit fiddly, I know. Just click and hold and drag it until it flips onto the other side. Now I'm going to use my, back to my move tool, using Command T or Control T on a PC to rotate it around to get it to kind of where I want to go. Turn on my keyboard. It's looking okay. Now, if you are thinking, that seemed kind of painful, Dan, it is kind of painful in Photoshop. It does it fine. Illustrator does it better, as well as InDesign. They do this kind of like type on a path thing a lot nicer, and there's a little bit more sophisticated tools, but Photoshop does it fine-ish. Now you can leave now. I'm going to go and play with my fonts. I'm going to grab my type tool. I am going to say the light version. I want it all to be light. I'm going to play around with the tracking as well. Hit escape, I'm going to undo. I want you to be the light version. I want you to be the super heavy version. You can see it kind of adjust the lines. There's a lot of rotating to get everything to look nice. Same with established. I'm actually going to drop down the font size to something smaller. Do the same thing here. So I'm going to make you the big heavy one. And I'm going to make you. If you're finding it hard to select on, I am finding it hard too. Back to my move tool, transform it around a little bit. Actually, what I might do is before I rotate it around with this layer selected, this one here we haven't really looked at. It's called tracking or kerning. Okay, it's the space between letters. So I'm going to drag it up or down. So I'm going to say I want it to be about 50 because it's on the inside of the circle. They're kind of starting to touch. So with Scotch shoes, okay, I want it to maybe tuck it in a little bit because it's expanded out. So maybe minus 50. Now there's a lot of rotating and resizing. Cool, so we're nearly at the end, or we're at the end. What I'm gonna do is add that kind of S in the middle here and set you a little project. So I've called mine Scott Shoes. You give yours your own name, pick your own fonts, see if you can get the type to bend round, make it look nicer than my version. And we're gonna pick a big kind of like hero, we're picking a logo type. And I'm just gonna cheat by going with the type tool, clicking once out here. I'm gonna type a capital S. I'm gonna go through my fonts, and I've already gone through my fonts. I'm lying, it's the one that I want is, so it's not a logo I've designed, I've cheated and just used the font. Where is it called? It's called Hobos? Oh, I'm not sure. And I'm gonna grab my font size and just make it nice and big. You probably don't have that font, so go through and find a font that you like as a nice big kind of logo type. And I want to see what you make. Okay, so you might have a really long name, okay? So, but give it your name, pick some fonts, circles, colors. I'd love to see a screenshot of what you make for your brand. Doesn't even have to be shoes, just be your name. I just want you to prove to me you can do type on a path, and out of, when you're posting it, okay, give me a out of 10 how painful it was. Okay, I still find it painful, and I'm pretty good at this, so you might find it even more painful. So out of 10, 10 being mind-blowingly brain-melting painful, and one being super, super easy. I don't know what you're going on about, Dan. So send it to me on social media. Instagram, I'm Bring Your Own Laptop. On Twitter, I'm Dan Loves Adobe, or just post it here on this page. Thanks for tuning in, one of the longer ones. I will see you in the very next video. Hi everyone, in this video we are going to add stroke around text and objects, and even we're going to get a bit fancy with double strokes that have patterns in them. Alright, let's go and do that now in Photoshop. Hi there, to get started you can use the file that we've been working on, or just work with any file. We'll start with adding stroke to the text and then an object and doing multiple strokes, all very exciting. So start with the all stars text. So I've got it selected here in my layers, make sure it's this light gray. And adding a stroke around the outside, use this little effects, little icon down the bottom, click on them and go to stroke. It's that easy. Now, yours is probably gonna look nothing like mine. Mine remembers the last thing I did. Yours is probably gonna be, whizzing through it there, black and like 1 point. So you might be looking at it and going, I can't even see it. It's a little bit hard to see, right? So grab the size, crank it up. And you can see in my case, it depends on what position yours is set to. I think it's probably by default set to center. I think so. So inside, okay, is the inside of the text. And you can kind of see when I get to this size, it's all on the inside of the font, outside and center. Okay, it straddles both sides of the outside of the text. In my case, I want outside. I'm gonna lower it down a little bit, and I'm gonna pick a color. Okay, now you can pick a color from in here. What I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna hold anything down. I can just click out here anywhere and it picks colors from the document. Okay, so find something you like that maybe ties in with the background. That's gonna work for me. I'm gonna click OK. And yeah, that's adding stroke to text. Click OK. Say you really like it and you want to do the same thing to the C Taylor here. What you can do is you can right click the layer. So I'm right clicking the word, not the icon or anything else, just the word all stars, right click it. And there's this one here that says copy layer style. So that's what these things are called. This little button down the bottom here, it's called a layer style. Okay, all of these are layer styles. So right clicking it and saying copy layer style, okay, I've copied it. I can find the C layer, a C Taylor layer. Okay, and right click him and say paste layer style. And along he comes for the right. I don't like that, so I'm gonna go to edit undo, but that's the way to do that. Now you can add strokes to anything. We've done it for text, but you can do the same thing for objects. Okay, so this little rectangle here, I can right click and go to stroke and there's nothing different. Okay, I just add a stroke around it. The only thing you might notice is that it's kind of faded out. You're like, like it should be exactly the same sort of color as this, and the opacity is right up and it's not the same. It's because we actually lowered the opacity of this rectangle, okay, earlier on in a previous course. You might not be following along in order, but all that's happened is, let's say I'm gonna adjust this to be really big and pick up another color. Click OK. What's happening is, see this opacity here on this layer? So the layer selected, the opacity was set to 50. If I turn it back to its pure black color, that stroke comes back to life. And both of those things I hate, so I'm gonna go to edit step backwards to get rid of the stroke. A better example would have been earlier on in the course. Remember we made these circles here. There's this one, okay, and I made a second one and expanded it out just so that I'd probably do that with an extra stroke around the outside. Earlier on in the course, I guess I want to stick to your current skill set, but now if I was redoing this, I would do a circle with a pink stroke around. Now let's go a little bit more advanced. Okay, so this All Stars layer here, I'm going to show you how to add more than one stroke. Okay, it's a handy trick, and I'm going to show you some patterns and things. So with All Stars layer selected, I want to edit the stroke. Let's just say I want to edit it. No double strokes just yet. All you do is double click on this word here called stroke, not effects, double click on stroke. And I can go in here and just edit it if I like. Okay, so that's editing it. Also in here is the chance where I get to add more than one stroke. So there's a few of these layer styles that allow for an extra version of itself, or as many as you like actually. So stroke, inner shadow, there's a few of them you can have doubles of. So in this case, stroke, I want to hit this little plus button. Now I have 2 strokes. Now the trouble is that they're the same size and the same color, so they don't show over here. And what happens is it's a layer order like your layers over here. So the one on top gets seen first and covers this one underneath. So if I change the one underneath, watch this, and pick a different color, I was going to pick random color, nothing happens because it's hiding underneath this top one, which is this more peachy color. Okay, but there's one underneath, if I make it a bit bigger, go away, kind of pokes out the sides. So that's how to add double strokes. Now, I'd probably pick something, oh man, it's looking bad. Yeah, it's looking okay. I'm going to go a little bit further. Okay, double strokes is kind of advanced, but this next bit, I don't want to blow your brain, but I want to give you there's some cool, easy enough tricks to do while you're here. If you've made it this far in the video, let's go a bit further. So where it says fill type, okay, we've done color, and that's the normal one. Gradient is as you imagined it, gradient. We looked at that in an earlier video. You click on this here to change the colors. But let's look at this one called pattern. It's quite cool. It's quite cool for this particular style here, this kind of like 70s basketball kind of thing. And you can see, I'm gonna zoom in over here, I've got this kind of like lines that run around the outside. Cool, and that's coming from this pattern. So you can change this pattern. There's some cool options in here. Straight lines, vertical lines, horizontal, squares, dots. Okay, there's lots of things in here. Those top ones are quite cool. All the rest of them are a little bit, I don't know. I wouldn't say lame. Lame's a bad word. These are lame. Okay, these two down here, they get like usable, whoa. Anyway, so I'm gonna go to this one here because I quite like it. You can play around with the scale of it. I'm gonna make it a bit smaller. And what you'll notice is that, remember we had, this was actually a pink. Oh, what was it? I can't remember. So go back to color. Yeah, it was pink. So it was pink, and then I apply this pattern and it goes white, and you're like, yeah, what happened? It's basically where the pattern, see this pattern here has got a black line with a white outside. Now, we're not gonna go through how to make your own patterns in this video, okay, but basically, yeah, it's getting the white from this little square here. There's a thing we can do to get around that. We can go into the blend modes. We've looked at blend modes a little bit in the past. We haven't really gone into them hardcore. We'll do that later in the course, but it's just the way that this pattern is blending with the background. In this case, behind it is this green circle. So at the moment, it's not doing anything. It's just sitting on top normally. Dissolve never does anything, but then when you start getting into darken and multiply, can you see the different effects that are playing here? Okay, so have a little look through which one's going to work for you in this case. I'm probably just going to go to multiply. It is really hard to know what they're going to do in these cases because, you know, it's not you. It's basically the top pattern, texture, and color mixing with the bottom pattern, texture, and color. And because those are always different, well, normally always different, every time you use something like soft light, you'll be like, oh, it's different from the last time I used it. And that's not you, that's just part of Photoshop. So even me, I have to go through and go this painful kind of like, let's see what all these do. Okay, it is painful. Whoa, difference, it's kind of cool. So I'm gonna go back to multiply because that's what I kind of liked. And I'm gonna scale it down just a tiny bit, or up a big bit. Oh, I'm just messing around now. Yeah, that looks okay for me. All right, everyone, so that is how to create a layer style using the stroke. We've added multiple strokes and we got even fancy with a pattern stroke. And remember, you can copy and paste them by right-clicking the layer, going copy, not paste, going copy, and then pasting it on a different text document or a cross document. Say it's a different completely document, open it up, paste it across, and it's a way of keeping consistent strokes and swishy lines that you've spent some time making. All right, let's get into the next video now where we look at bevel and emboss, my absolute worst of the layer styles, but loads of people like them, so we're gonna do them together anyway. Let's go. Hi there, in this video, it's all about bevels and embosses, making this kind of 3D effect. I'll turn it off, turn it back on. All right, I'm not a big fan of it, but you might love it, and that's okay. I will judge you still, but I won't do it to your face, don't worry. Let's jump in now and learn bevels and embosses. All right, so we can add that bevel and emboss to any shape, okay, we like, okay. Instead of text, we're gonna do this circle here. So I'm gonna click on the circle, make sure it's selected, turn the eye on and off so you know you got the right one selected. And it's down here under effects, okay, bevel and emboss. And that's it, pretty easy. Okay, so you've got some bevel and an emboss styles. So the default is inner bevel, looks like it's kind of make it a little disc. Okay, and the things you might adjust, okay, there's lots to play around with, but the main ones are the depth. Can you see how sharp this looks now around the edges here? I'm gonna turn it down a bit. And the size, how far that creeps in. And then the soften, okay, you can turn it so it gets really fluffy around the outside. So just play with those. Okay, those are your main ones to play around with. The other thing you might play around with is, see this shading? This angle here is quite interesting. Well, not interesting, but you can see it's going straight from top to bottom. Watch this. I can make it look. You can kind of look at this icon or my little option down here. Let's move down to make it easier. You just click anywhere here and decide where you want it to go. Okay, that is our bevel and emboss. Let's look at a couple of the other options. So there's outer bevel, which I kind of like. I don't like any of them. I go through phases though. I hated gradients a couple of years ago, but now as you can tell, I am overdoing the gradients. So let's look at emboss. Kind of looks like it's sitting. It does outer and inner. There's pillow emboss, looks like it's kind of like sitting inside it, like it's resting on material. Okay, you just go through and have a little look about these things that you want, and play around with the settings you want to. And that is going to be it. I'm gonna leave with this one, click OK, and as soon as I'm finished, I'm gonna click on it and drag it into the bin. You might love embosses. There's nothing wrong with them, just personal taste, and that's, yeah. And if you love them, okay, we've got an exercise coming up in a second and you can cover the whole thing in bevel and embosses, okay, and share it with me and prove me wrong. All right, that's it for this video. Let's jump into the next one. Hi there, it is drop shadow time. Okay, you can see this text here, both have drop shadows applied. Okay, it's not super hard to do, but we're gonna look at it. We're gonna do it for objects as well. These stars have drop shadows. You just turn it back on. It's not gonna take us long, but also I'm gonna throw in some bonus did you knows at the end. So hang around and yeah, let's get started. To add a drop shadow to text or any object, just make sure it is selected in your layers panel. Goes this light gray color. Let's go down to effects and go to drop shadow. And that's how you imagined it. Okay, so we'll do a couple little things just to get you a little bit more clued on how it works. So by default, it'll remember the last thing you've done. So yours won't look exactly like mine. So opacity obviously is just how see-throughiness it is. Okay, I'm gonna lower mine down a little bit. Now in terms of drop shadows, it depends. I like mine straight up and down, like 90 degrees. Okay, so it kind of pokes off the bottom there. And in terms of distance, it's how far it is away. Give that a play. Okay, and the size is how kind of spread out or dispersed the shadow is. Okay, so it really depends. Like I often just punch in 3 and 3 for these two, and that's enough for what I do. It's either 5 and 5 or 3 and 3, and that generally gets to the kind of preferred stuff that I like. You might hate that, and you might like a big giant fuzzy one, so do that as well. There's no right or wrong. Let's look at 2 extra things. So let's click on OK. Let's say that I like this and I want to add it to this layer as well. So I can right click it. I can go to copy layer style, find my Scott shoes, which is there it is there. I can right click that and go to paste style. I'm going to do it to these 2 stars as well. So the star here, can I do them both at the same time? Right click, paste style. Oh, I can, fancy. Okay, this bottom one here, the opacity changed. So I'm going to lower the opacity again because that's what I liked about it. Anyway, one last thing to talk about when it comes to shadows. So I've got this top star selected, and let's say I don't like it going up and down. I liked it on the text, but I didn't like it over here. So to edit my drop shadow, I just double click the word drop shadow. I'm gonna move that out of the way, and let's say I want to change the angle. And what's going to happen is this guy here, use global light. So let's say I move it to the side here. It looks great, but did you notice it changed over here? You might not. So let's see it all changed. It even changed in this here under the bevel and emboss, which we did earlier. Watch, when I move it around, can you see they all change? That's the use of global light. Okay, it just means that every layer style in this whole document will be affected by with the light angle. And that's kind of cool, right? Because you want them all to be hitting the same angles. But in our case, we didn't. I want it to be 90 for them all, but I'm gonna, for this one particular star that I've got selected, I'm gonna turn off that. And watch now, just that one star is working, okay, and adjusting the way I want. I'm not gonna go through all the settings. You can play around with the contours and the noise, and you can play with the spread. I never do though, so we're gonna leave it for the moment and let you experiment. But that, my friends, is how to add drop shadows. All right, next video. All right, to make this work, we're gonna have to do a little bit of a hack. And what I mean by that is that there's some skills you're gonna learn further in the course, things like smart objects and layer masks, which are gonna make this a very perfect, non-destructive, professional version of what we're just about to do. But we don't have those skills. So we're gonna do a big old hack version where it works, but it may be not the most professional use. So what we need to do is kind of smush all of this together. Okay, so at the moment, it's all separate layers and stuff. We need to kind of smash it into one layer. And to do this quick and easy at the moment, what we're going to do is we're gonna leave, I've saved this version I'm up to. It grays out when it's already saved. So if you're like, man, it won't let me save, it's because you've already saved and nothing has changed. Watch, I move it, and then it goes, hey, I get to save it again. Okay, so I'm gonna undo that. So let's save your document, and then let's save a backup. So let's go to save as. So we're gonna keep that one original with all the layers so I can do adjustments. Now I'm gonna go onto my desktop. I'm gonna call this one hacked postcard. It's not hacked, it's just, we're doing it the bad way. Let's click OK. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to layer, and we're gonna go to this one that says flatten image. And you can see all my good work and all my separate layers have gone. I can't separate them out. That's the bad bit. The cool bit though is it allows us to do the drop shadow and kind of moving it around. First up, we need to, we have that kind of continued problem with background and it's locked. So just name it. I'm gonna call this one my postcard. So that's phase one, it's got rid of the lock. Next one is we need to expand the background a little bit. So the easiest way is under image and go to canvas size. Canvas size, think of it as your page size. So at the moment we are using inches, okay, 6x4. I want it to be a bit bigger either side. So how much bigger? Maybe 1.5 inches, 1.5. Oh, what was that? 5.5 either side. Okay, and click OK. I've just got a bit of extra background now. Cool. So next thing I want to do is add a background behind it. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer. It's this little turned up page here. I'm going to call this one my background. With it selected, I'm going to say I want to go to edit and I'm going to go to fill. So I'm going to fill that layer with what color? I'm going to fill mine with black. You might say foreground, background. You can pick a color. I'm just going to pick black. Click OK. And problem with the layer order is obvious now. Backgrounds at the top. So click, hold them, drag them underneath. Now what I want to do with this, you could have just picked a solid color. Okay, what I want to do is add my gradient that we did earlier, because remember, I'm overdoing gradients all the way through this course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to effects. I've got that layer selected, effects, and I'm going to go to gradient overlay. And it's remembering the default that I had, okay, from the last one. But remember, if you click on the word gradient here, you can double click these two little houses to pick new colors. But that's in an earlier tutorial. Jump back and check out the gradient one if you want to know more about it. What I might do is change the direction a bit. And I'm going to lower the opacity. Lowering the opacity in this case, because there's black as my background color, it's going to kind of darken it up because these are the black, and I'm just kind of raising it up a little bit. Find where you want to be. Click OK. Now we're going to use our drop shadow and rotation. So click on postcard. Let's rotate it. You could go to edit, transform, use rotate, but now we're using super duper shortcuts. Remember, which is it? You can't remember. It is Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC. Okay, and not there, just a bit further out, click, hold, and drag. I don't know why it's on the angle. It's just like, I don't know, just thrown down in a casual but professional way. I don't know. Not sure why it doesn't work that way. It has to be on that kind of lean. When you finish, hit return on your keyboard or enter. And now we're going to add our drop shadow. And yeah, there's not going to be much more than that. That's what we're going to do. We're learning it now because it's going to be part of your homework in the next video. So hang around if you like. I'm just going to add a nice big shadow, opacity up, distance up, play with the angle, size-wise. Look at that. Beautiful. I never play around with the spread. You'll see, it's not why, like it's like the choke. It just kind of moves this kind of drop shadow further out. I just never use it. You might love it. Click OK. That's our little gangster lean. We are now gonna add a bit of text and get on to the next video. Totally skip ahead now because I am just gonna add some text, but you can stay if you like. This is like a client presentation, right? So I'm gonna say my super duper client is going to be, actually I'm gonna keep these on all separate line. Actually, I'll put a return in client and project. What I'm gonna do, select them all. I'm gonna say that we need right aligned. I'm gonna use a different font. Museo I've been using through this font course. You don't have it probably. It's a font you can download from Typekit if you wanna go and do that. It's part of your Creative Cloud license. I'm not gonna cover it all now, but I'm gonna use a slab. It comes in a slab version as well, which I like. So I'm gonna go to the light version. I'm gonna grab the font, lower it down. The leading, I'm gonna do the leading here. Not so much leading, not so much font size either. Yeah, that'll do it for me. Cool, I'm gonna duplicate this. Now we've been using the right click duplicate. I'm gonna share a little secret. If you hung around, you get the super secret. Okay, watch this. Click, hold, and drag it to the new window, and it makes a duplicate and gives it the name copy. Cool, and there he is there. Awesome, huh? Pays to hang around sometimes. I keep telling people to go and disappear, and then I give you a super secret trick. All right, so this one here, I'm gonna use the 700, 900. And the client for this one is gonna be Scott Shoes. The project's going to be their spring sale postcard. I'm reluctant to date these things because I've got stuff in my portfolio that's like 10 years old. It's just holding on in terms of being okay to add to that, still add to it, but it might be a big client or I just want to hang on to it, so I don't date them. What's going to date this though is the gradients. You know, I think I'm catching the end of this gradient phase as well. I feel like the whole Instagram gradient filter type thing is going to be dead in a little while, whilst my portfolio is gradient-tastic. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. Next video, we're going to set a project for everybody. Let's jump into that and do it now. All right, it is homework project time. Don't think of it as homework, think of it as ways to really solidify what you've learned so far. And I promise you, I've taught this loads of times, and it's the people who bother going and doing these little extras that really find the benefits, or at least find the tools stick a lot more than, you know, just kind of following along with me with the videos. So your homework, that's not really homework, it's fun stuff to do. You'll find the outline in your exercise files. Okay, so exercise files, there's a folder in there called projects, and you can open either one of these. One's a Word doc and one's a PDF, whatever's takes your fancy, they're the same. Okay, and in here it explains what you need to do. I'll quickly run through it here. Basically, it's creating your own version of our postcard and sharing it with us. Okay, you don't have to share it with me, but I'd love you to. So these are the requirements. Okay, so you choose your own theme, pick, you know, you might have a business you work for, your own kind of like side hustle that you do stuff for. It could just be a church group or a social group or anything you can think of to do a postcard for. Choose your own image. You might use one from your cell phone, or if you're a photographer, use one of your own, or go grab one from Unsplash. I want you to fix that image. Okay, so something from Unsplash is probably not going to need much fixing, but if you're using your own one, go through, do the levels, just like the hues and saturations and vibrance, all that whole section on adjustments. Have a look through that. I want you to add a gradient. It's totally optional. I'm into gradients, as you know, but see if you can do this thing. Even if you don't do it, you know, don't want it in your final, you don't want this kind of like hideous gradient, you can, I just want you to run through the process just so you know about blending modes and those types of things. Once you have at least one shape, I kind of did them all to try and fit them all in for this course. So we've got circles and stars and rectangles with corners. You just need at least one. In terms of colors, okay, you might let the image drive the colors like we did for some of these circles, or you can go to Adobe color themes to get inspiration for colors. Remember those 5 color swatches that it picked for us? Next thing is you need to have just some text, okay, like the standard text here. You can kind of copy the structure that I had. You're allowed to use lorem ipsum. But you also need to do that text on a path. Okay, remember this badge down the bottom here where it kind of wrapped around, or maybe the stripy stuff on the line? You can do either of those. One uses of that, or 2 or 10, but I want to see that. I want to see at least 2 layer styles. So that includes drop shadows, strokes, gradients, bevel and embosses. Have a look through that whole list. We didn't cover them all in this course. You might find, I'll experiment with another one and surprise me with inner feather or outer feather. I can't think of any other ones, but 2 of them at least. And then I want you to present it, not exactly like this, but in that same sort of vein where we saved a version of the document, we flattened it down, then we kind of, it doesn't have to be on an angle, okay? It could just be straight in there, but a little drop shadow to make it look like it's, you might put in the background a photograph of a desk, so it looks like it's sitting there on a desk, okay? But that's the way I'd like you to present it for this particular exercise. And then I want you to save and share. And over here it just says save a JPEG copy. We haven't really done exporting yet. Okay, we did saving, but just so you know, file, save, file, save as even. Okay, and option in here is JPEG. Okay, and that's the easy one to share around. Okay, or you can just take a screenshot. On my Mac, it's Command-Shift-4. Okay, hold those keys down, and I can draw a box around stuff. And then on my desktop, you hear the little snappy noise. That on my desktop will be a screenshot. That's an easy way to do it as well. On a PC, can't really remember. There's a print screen button on there somewhere. You'll have to Google that one or do the save as JPEG. And that is it, my friends. Well, I want you to share it with me. Okay, you can DM me if you don't want to share it publicly, but let's share it publicly. Okay, great places are Instagram, just tag me. Okay, you can click on that link to get to my Instagram account. You can tag me in Twitter as well. There's a Facebook group, it's just getting started. I'd love you to get in there and start using that. I've only just got going with that, and yeah, you might be the first one there. But share it in there. But also you can use these accounts as well if you prefer, and you can use a direct message. If you're not much of a social person, just there's an assignment, depending on the website you're looking at, it ends up on a couple of places where you can, there's an assignment section on a lot of them, or you can just use the comments underneath the video. This video right here, you'll see a comment section and share it there. All right, that's it. You don't have to do it, of course, but please do. If you do, I'll see you in the next video in a couple of hours. Maybe a lot longer than that, depending on your current Photoshop skills. And for the people that are going to skip ahead, I will see you in a couple of seconds in the next video. All right, let's go. Hi, it's me again. If you enjoyed the video, a thumbs up really helps me in what I'm doing. Also consider subscribing to my YouTube channel because I release a video like this every week. Also note that this is part of my larger course. Okay, so this is like a free part of it. There's a larger course called Photoshop Essentials. So you could go check that out. There's a link in the description for that full course. Also know that there's exercise files. Those are free to download. Go check that out, link in the description. Another link in the description will be the cheat sheet. So I make it like a PDF cheat sheet for Photoshop with all the tips and tricks you can print off and stick next to your computer and be more awesome. Link in the description. Yeah, all right, that's enough. Hi, Dada.